ownership is one thing, rights are another. And in fact, the Supreme Court ruled that when somebody sued their title insurance company, they were told, well, no, you weren't told in your title search that you didn't have full ownership or right to trespass, because that's just a law. It's customer use is just a common law that's known, just like it doesn't say in your deed you can't Airbnb your property. There might be rules that say you can't Airbnb your property, but it's not in the deed. That's what this is like, and there's Harvard Law articles about this. And so what I don't understand is how we could ever get to a point where the sheriff trespasses people based on a survey that doesn't reflect any of that information. And we previously told them not to do that several years ago. The sheriff was going to do this from surveys, and they said no. So this is all very good, I think, leading towards a customer use ordinance and maybe even the sign ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Lisa Kurzman a general comment?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak this evening.
Okay. Kyle Fleming?
Hello, yes, my name is Kyle Fleming. I'm the owner of Kyle Fleming Photography. I saw on the news today that there was a chance that the city of St. Pete might eliminate or restrict photography setups on the beach. I don't know if that was part of the agenda today, but like Channel 8 made it as a part of today's part, or you might be considering it. I would say some cities have restricted use, and that's fine, but sometimes it requires 7 days, 30 days, 45 days notice for our client to let us know that they want to hire us. Sometimes we get 2 hours of notice. They see a great weather, and they're like, let's hire a photographer. I'm Kyle from Photography. I do have liability insurance and can work in great hotels such as the Don Cesar. Anyway, my wife today actually is working at Tradewinds for a guest of 14 people. I don't know when she was hired for that, but it might have just been 3 days ago. So I don't know what the city might be thinking about restricting access to photography, whether or not that includes just a light stand or huge commercial setups with 20 different people. It's always just my wife or I, or just myself or just my wife. So anyway, I thank you for the input, and again, my name is Kyle Fleming. Kyle Fleming Photography. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I actually think that's the one that got deferred until a time future, so we aren't considering it this evening, but we will be considering it in the future.
So other input, like from
yes, sir, other opportunities.
And other photographers come in too.
I can't say who's coming in, but thank you. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Deb Scheckner?
Good evening. Deborah Scheckner, Boca Ciega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I think it was prudent to change the beach ordinance to after we would find out customary use, because we don't want to have any issues, challenges, questions from the hoteliers and the beach owners if we get customary use at first. And I think personally it should go back to being a rule, regulation, and an ordinance. We need to make sure this is permanent. And honestly, it wasn't fair that you meet with hoteliers and the chamber, change the beach ordinance, and then expect the residents not to have input or at least be aware of what's going on. So that's not kosher in my eyes. I'd like to know two things. Cezanne owns a property on 46th that he used Memorial Day weekend to park cars at $75 each. He also uses it as a storage yard. He blocked all the traffic on the street access to my neighborhood as well as others, 46, and it doesn't seem like he ever gets not even a slap on the hand. He can do whatever he wants. Why is he using that as a storage yard? Illegal. Parking lot? Illegal. So maybe we should look at that. I also wonder where we are on the investigation regarding the mothballs. I have a few calls into FWC. They haven't gotten back to me yet, but it seems like by now this should have been solved. And so I don't know if you can give a report on where we are on that, but I find it to be a threatening act, a damaging act, an act to hurt the wildlife, and quite frankly, what if a kid had thought it was a bubble gum and picked it up? You don't eat mothballs. You go to the hospital if you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Richardson.
Hello, Dana Richardson, 5830 Bahama Way South. Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. I was prepared and I don't need to speak. So thank you so much on denying the first reading. I appreciate it. But as I was sitting, and I just had a thought, because one of my issues was that we seem to always get to this place. You are elected to represent the residents, and we appreciate it. But when these meetings happen with the city, before it comes to planning board or the commission, I think we should look into some type of a resident input committee, whatever you want to call it, maybe 2 from each district that can also be met with to help put in input and shape these things before it goes to planning board. Your history on your presentation says that the intervening meetings were with Beach Stewardship Committee, rightfully so, on multiple occasions, the planning board, but then again, as we already know, hoteliers and the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber was afforded 2 meetings. And I think that as residents being major stakeholders in this community, that we should be given the same rights and ability to have input at this, when the city starts working on these things. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for what you do for us. Bye-bye.
Thank
Those
you.
are the only general comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we move into the consent agenda. And I believe the only option is the meeting minutes, right? So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson.
Yes.
Commissioner Causey.
Yes.
Mayor Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I think based on our modified agenda, we're going into action items. Authorize the city manager to execute the 8th addendum and renewal with the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority for the Suncoast Beach Trolley Agreement for fiscal year 2026 transit service for $308,279.51.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. Adam Poyer, Assistant City Manager. So the addendum that you have in front of you is the 8th one for this agreement with the Suncoast Beach Trolley. The fees cover not only the Suncoast Beach Trolley, but the Route 90 commuter service, which enters the beach from the Bayway, and along with that, the access for the paratransit services for city residents. So based on several questions I received, PSTA has sent several representatives to answer your questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Darden Rice from PSTA.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Tate, Vice Mayor Robinson, Commissioner Causey, Commissioner Maldonado, and Commissioner and PSTA Representative Karen Marriott. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and inviting PSTA tonight. My name is Darden Rice, and I'm PSTA's Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer. And with me tonight is also PSTA's Chief Operating Officer, James Bradford, and our Planning Director, Nicole Dufa. First of all, on a personal note, just want to say thank you for your service. My family has been in St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, West St. Pete, called it our home for decades. My first job as a teenager was working at the Leverox, which used to be at the end of the street, and the Rice Law Firm next door is my uncle and cousin. I am the lead point person to manage PSTA's many interlocal agreements, including the draft renewal agreement for fiscal year 2026 that's in front of you today. PSTA values our relationship with the city of St. Pete Beach. We are proud to serve all citizens of Pinellas County. The beach community has not been shy to say when you want PSTA services and when you don't. Either way, we have worked with you for decades, and we thank you for your partnership and your service. As you know, there are some circumstances and a little confusion surrounding today's agreement, and that's why you invited me here. I can only speak for PSTA, of course, but on our side, due to overlapping personnel changes at PSTA, there has been some confusion on our end as to whom had the ownership and management overseeing the paperwork of the recent agreement and getting the agreement completed before it expired, and then communicating with you, like all parts of this, consistently. We have now put a system in place and a new project management software, and we have a clear line of command and follow-through that my department now oversees. So to show you our faith as a good partner, PSTA recognizes that the city budgeted $220,600 for the fiscal year 2026 bill to PSTA. So after consulting with our COO, with our team, with our CFO, we decided that we would reaffirm the fiscal year 2026 contract at the amount that you budgeted for $220,600, not the amount that's currently on the draft in front of you. Listen, this isn't the type of thing that usually happens, but for the difference in our ledger book, in this case, it can be made up from the small surplus that we had budgeted. So in this situation, we want to be a partner, we want to be fair, we want to be flexible, and this is a delta that we can cover. I'm not exactly sure how the city came to budgeting the $220,600 amount. That's not something we can answer, but at any rate, PSTA takes responsibility for communicating clearly and early and more often for the next time. So if the city decides tonight to amend the draft agreement for the total of $220,600 and send it to PSTA, we will happily sign it and approve it. Then we want to come back to you and your team, Francis, in short order with the projections for fiscal year 2027. At that point, we would hear what your needs are, what are the services that you're thinking of asking from PSTA. We'll walk through with you and your team how we go through our marginal cost in a very transparent way, the way that we've always computed the cost for how we provide the Suncoast Trolley, Route 20, PSTA access for paratransit and mobility on demand, all of that. And when we come to an agreement with that, we will have our fiscal year 2027 plans, and there shouldn't be any surprises. A big caveat, of course, is what happens in fiscal year 2028, and we'll know about that come November. We're all going to be in the same situation with looking at our expenses a bit differently if that passes. But thank you again. I know you have some questions, and we are very happy to be here and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. And before other questions come out, I just want to thank you. That was a very kind offer, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate your team looking into this and making that offer. So thank you. Very, very kind. Appreciate the assessment.
Very welcome.
Commissioner Maldonado.
Mrs. Rice, again, thank you, as the mayor said, for bringing that down by $87,679.51. It's a huge gesture. But my question to you is, if you're not prepared now, when will you be prepared to provide statistics on ridership, use, increase, decrease, what patterns we've been seeing over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years?
We have some of those numbers now. I don't know if we have them to compare over the 3 or 4 years' time, but we can get those numbers for you very easily.
Yeah, I'd like to just see ballpark figures where we're at with ridership, even just the last year.
Nicole or James?
I'd like to see a trend.
Okay.
That's good.
A trend would be great, but
Trend, please.
yeah,
Please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer of PSTA. So over the last 3 years, on the Central Avenue trolley, which used to be part of the makeup of the formula, and we ended up cutting it back and then cutting it out totally. So you all would have seen the ask from PSTA drop over the years. But Central Avenue trolley, FY23, about 322,000 rides. FY24, 294,000. FY25, 279,000. And then through this fiscal year, it's about 133,000. Of course, the Central Avenue trolley used to end and truncate in St. Pete Beach, and now it's been cut back to the Central Avenue terminal, and then it runs back and forth between the pier. The Suncoast Beach trolley in FY23 was about 575,000 rides, trending downward to FY24, 570,000, FY25, 452,000, and then through 6 months, an uptick, about 254,000, almost 255,000 rides. Route 90, FY23, 19,000, FY24, 13,000, FY25, 8,000, and then through 6 months, trending downward a bit off pace, FY26 through 6 months, 4,311 rides. The Sunrunner, strong performer. We're seeing the majority of boardings on Boca Ciega, and of course, Beach Access Park. It was FY23, well over 1 million rides, and of course it was free, fare free then. FY24, 761,000 on the Sunrunner. FY25, 732,000 rides. And through 6 months, trending back upward through 6 months, about 413,000 rides. So just to kind of give you a little bit of how the ridership there is trending.
I guess I have the question of the numbers we just heard. Are those actual people who got on and off in our city? Or are those for the total service that was provided?
Those were numbers for St. Pete Beach.
Okay.
Commissioner Marriott.
Sure, thanks. I just had a couple of questions to kind of clarify how the funding of PSTA works, because this is something that I didn't know until very recently also. So much to learn in government funding. And so could you just give us a little overview of how the PSTA is funded in other cities versus the money that you collect from St. Pete Beach?
Sure. So PSTA is a special district created by a special act in the legislature. The legislation was passed in 1984. It formally merged the transit systems in Clearwater and in St. Petersburg. The act, when it was created, it set forth the creation of the board and the governance practices and how we were formed. At the time it passed, there were a few cities that opted out, and those cities were St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, Tierra Verde, Bel Air Beach, and Kenneth City. So those areas, the residents in St. Pete Beach, when on their property taxes, there is no ad valorem line for PSTA. So you do not have any ad valorem taxes go to PSTA. So in situations where in those non-member cities that want PSTA service, we craft these interlocal agreements and invoice you for the service. And there's some cities who are members, like Clearwater, who want extra, and St. Petersburg, that want extra service and more service. And so we negotiate with them what they pay above that.
Thank you. And then also, just to clarify, I think when we were talking about ridership numbers, the Sunrunner was mentioned, but historically, the last few years, the Sunrunner, the rate that our agreement with PSTA has historically been based on an operating hour metric. And that hasn't counted the Sunrunner, correct? Because originally, when the Sunrunner was coming to St. Pete Beach, the residents of St. Pete Beach said, we don't want dedicated bus lanes, we don't really want the Sunrunner to come here at all. We don't want to be involved. And so we're not paying any hourly rate for Sunrunner operation at this time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then, and so the beach trolley that runs up and down, north through the beaches, I think you said Treasure Island, you have a similar interlocal agreement with Treasure Island.
Yes, we do.
And so they also pay into that trolley system. It's not like.
Yes, they do.
So it's not like PSDA is trying to go, what does that trolley system cost us? Let's bill it all to St. Pete Beach.
No.
Okay. Perfect.
I did not bring the Treasure Island interlocal agreement
that's
with
fine,
me.
yeah.
It is public record.
They have their own, it's a similar thing, I imagine. Okay.
I'm 99% sure it's the same marginal rate.
Okay. And then my last question for you is, you mentioned the Access, the paratransit service, which is available for anybody who has a disability that prohibits them from driving, correct?
And prevents them from utilizing bus services. So, for example, someone may be blind or have epilepsy or have some other type of physical infirmity that prevents them from using the bus system, and they need a special pickup.
Okay. And that service is available to people in the city of St. Pete Beach because of proximity to bus stops, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Within 3/4 of a mile of any bus route, that would put someone in the zone to be eligible for the access services.
Okay. And do you happen to know how many, either how many rides or how many residents of St. Pete Beach take advantage of that access or mobility on demand program?
I do, because as part of our agreement, we bill you for the previous year. So we always, it's not guessing, you get billed for the previous year. So we always have those numbers. There's a blended rate of $29.95 a trip, and that's a blended rate that includes PSTA access and mobility on demand. I can explain the difference in just a second. But you have we have the number of users each month, and of course it's the snowbird fluctuating. But so it was. I have the total number of riders month by month, but the total trips for the previous year was like 1,723 trips.
Okay, thank you.
Multiply that times $29.95, and that was about almost $52,000.
Okay, thank you.
And if routes were to be cut, we would not be able to offer access.
Right, because if you're not within that 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop, you're not eligible for it.
Correct.
Right, so if there were no bus stops in St. Pete Beach, then that service would go away as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. A few more questions for you, please. Do you know which destination in St. Pete Beach? You've got a few stops here. Which one is the most popular? Or can you rank them, if you will, in order of drop-offs and or pickups?
Yes. Give me just a second here. Unless you know it off the top of your head, Nicole. I have to say, if I can brag about Nicole for a second, she just was named got the what was the award?
Emerging Alumna of the Year from the University of Florida's Urban Planning Program.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Dufa, Director of Planning and Scheduling. So as far as our top stop locations here on St. Pete Beach, that is the 75th and Boca Ciega Drive, so the stop that is right outside this building here on Boca Ciega. And then our second highest stop location is the St. Pete Beach Access, so the end of line for the Sunrunner where many people, myself included, go to reach St. Pete Beach. And then our one after that is actually 75th and Gulf, so the transfer location for the Suncoast Beach Trolley, the Route 90, and where folks can get off the beach trolley and catch the Sunrunner to go further down the beach is our third highest stop location, and then our fourth is actually right in front of the Tradewinds. So we do see a lot of riders from the trade winds going back and forth on St. Pete Beach and even into St. Pete.
Thank you. One more question for you, please.
Sure.
And I think we might have touched on it. I just want to make sure I hear it. Your ridership, can you discern whether they're residents of St. Pete Beach or not, or they're just, this is where they happen to get on and get off, but we don't know if they're actual residents?
Yeah, at this time, we don't have, we could do a survey on St. Pete Beach if we wanted to really find out and drill down on who's residents versus who's tourists. I know anecdotally of both that use the service. I think with the location at the Trade Winds, we know that folks are tourists who are using it. We know folks are coming to the beach access to visit St. Pete Beach, but we do not have a definitive answer on residents versus tourists unless we were to do a specific survey on this portion of the beach.
And theoretically on the same, these are all trips to St. Pete Beach, and now I might ask the same set of questions on a, where do they end up getting off? You know, do they go to Treasure Island? Do they go to somewhere else, right? So where do they end up when they get picked up here? Is there, do you happen to have that? Will you rank where they end up dropping off, or would you know?
I don't have that ranked, but we do know in our data that a lot of folks are going north, and so that's the Suncoast Beach Trolley. So anyone who's taking the Suncoast Beach Trolley, that goes from here on St. Pete Beach all the way up to Clearwater Beach. And so we know folks who are going, taking the trip up to Treasure Island, Madeira Beach, et cetera, all the way up to Clearwater. And we also know of plenty of folks, especially on the Sunrunner, are going into St. Petersburg. The top destinations on the Sunrunner beyond the beach are actually in downtown St. Pete.
Thank you. I appreciate both your times today.
Thank you.
Action item, you're looking for a motion from us, correct?
Do we have,
Motion with an amendment.
do we have public comment, or do we need
Oh, yep,
public
sorry.
comment?
Yes, we probably do. Thank you.
John Kurzman.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Kurzman, Bahia Honda Way. I think the trolley is a very important and a great asset, and it's terrific to continue with it. But I think you need to put it in perspective of, here's the trolley. It's small, and it fits in our lanes. Our Gulf Boulevard is considered substandard by the state regulations. The width of our lanes is not the regular width of a lane. If you even go north from 75th, Gulf Boulevard is much wider in that area. And so what's happening is, here's your trolley, and here's your Sunrunner. Your Sunrunner, and I have 100 photos here. It's never in its lane. It's always outside of its lane. It doesn't know how to stay in its lane, and I've had the mirror go over my head when I'm riding my bike in the bike lane. It's not safe. So I think this should keep showing you all these pictures that I've taken on various days of the Sunrunner being, that's not the Sunrunner. I did a search on large buses, and that's what I found. In my dream car. But it's always sitting out there over the line, and it's a real problem. So my suggestion is that the Sunrunner, because it's not suited for our part of Gulf Boulevard, when it gets on 75th, it should turn right. And there's plenty of other public beaches to go to in Treasure Island and other county parks going north, and let it be the guy that goes north. And instead, let people who want to go south change to the trolley, and let the trolley head south, because that's the vehicle that we got because it was right for the beaches and for our kind of lane. So I'm just asking that be considered, because it's not safe. I mean, the bus itself is 8.5 feet wide, and then because of an exception in the federal law, you're allowed to put your safety equipment beyond that range. But it's a foot out in each direction, and the lane isn't that wide. So he's always hanging off of the other traffic lane. Maybe if it's a real safety issue, and I don't think that when they bought these Sunrunners, they really looked at our lanes to recognize where it would be, or they didn't anticipate it being on that part of the beach. So the trolley would be better for south. The Sunrunner should turn around or head north, and it could be a great service for the people north also. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it for public comments. Okay, thank you. there a motion, please?
Well, now I'm wondering, is the bus actually wider than the lanes?
Mirrors.
Do we know? I'm going to ask somebody from the PSTA, please.
Yeah, I believe our Sunrunner bus is about 102 inches, which is standard in the transit industry. And I'll check on the trolleys. They may be 96 inches wide, so there might be a 6-inch differential. In terms of safety, that's paramount for us. So if we're seeing Sunrunners that are not staying in their lane, that's right up my alley. And that's something I'm happy to take a deeper dive in. Make sure we're doing all we can to be safe and make sure that other motorists and bicyclists and pedestrians sharing our roads feel safe too. So I'm glad that comment was mentioned.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. And continuing that, so is that 102 include safety equipment on the bus, like the mirrors, et cetera?
Yeah, that would include the mirrors. And actually, the union brought this to my attention as well when traveling the lanes towards St. Pete Beach. They mentioned the fact that they thought some of the mirrors on the Sunrunner were a little bit wide because they're having to try to compromise the lane and get past some of the fixed objects, light poles, signs of that nature. So we did bring that to our maintenance to see how we could kind of tuck it in, and anytime an operator adjusts the mirrors, we still want to stay within that 102 inches. And I'm pretty sure my facts are correct, but I always want to double check. So if my maintenance or my ops team yells at me when I get back, I'll email an update.
Could I ask you, please, I know there's been a number of questions. You gave some statistics early on ridership. I just asked if city manager would be the right person to get the statistics. And I wasn't adept enough at writing them all down as you said them, but I'd love to get the metrics that you're kind of alluding to and get an email from you, presumably to our city manager.
Absolutely.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate you.
Happy to do so.
Other questions, sir? Okay. Thank you.
Just need a
Look for
motion.
Yep. I'm looking to see if there's a motion. Commissioner Marriott.
Yeah, thank you. So, I know that I hear from a number of people, I have heard from people, I'm sure we all have, that, you know, between the PSTA money and the money that we spend on the freebie, the city's spending too much money to drive people around who could just buy themselves an Uber, right? And I think there's some validity to that. I also think that there is some validity to there being some sort of public transportation in the vicinity. You know, I think the transportation for the paratransit for people who don't have any other options, I think is a good thing. I'm not one for government spending money on all kinds of programs, but if we're going to spend money on anything, that seems like a good one. And I think this needs to be a larger conversation of what we're going to do going forward. And I think the folks from PSTA have said that they're, you know, going to bring us some, you know, all the information that we want to go forward with a contract or not for the next fiscal year. And I think they've been very upfront in admitting that, like, look, something went wrong with the process this last year. This contract is coming very late. We're paying for things that have kind of already happened. So my inclination is that in the interest of being good partners in our larger community, where they have agreed to lower the rate to what was already budgeted, that it seems like that's probably it feels to me like the right thing to do, to approve that contract for the reduced amount that was already budgeted, and then have the larger conversation about what we're doing going forward as we roll into this next fiscal year and what we're going to do going forward. So with that being said, I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the contract and see what everybody else thinks about it.
That would be at the revised amount.
That the revised amount, yes. Yes.
Okay.
I believe it was 206,200.
220,600.
220,600.
Yes.
I second your motion.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Causey,
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado,
Yes.
Mayor Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Let's see. I believe we're into ordinances, which is 4B on the agenda.
Ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, for the purpose of renaming Land Development Code Division 44, Marine Turtle Protection, to Division 44, Marine Turtle and Coastal Wildlife Protection, amending sections 44.1 through 44.9, and adopting sections 44.10 through 44.14. To update technical standards, clarify requirements for new and existing development and special events, modify penalties, compliance, and enforcement measures, specify responsible parties, and update definitions to better serve the purpose and intent of this division and align with best practices, providing for codification, conflict severability, correction of scrivener's error, construction, publication, and an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Presentation, yes, sir.
Good evening, Brandon Berry, planner with the city. So this was a companion item to the ordinance that was continued. The content in that ordinance had been previously reviewed by the City Commission in some form. This item has not. It has been reviewed by our committees and planning board. This was intentionally written to be compliant with Senate Bill 180, which of course is still in effect. It went into effect last year after the 2024 hurricane season, and that puts significant restrictions on any kind of amendments that introduce additional development restrictions or permitting restrictions on new construction as well as existing construction. We currently have turtle lighting standards, model lighting standards in our land development code. That ordinance was written in 2007. It was based on an early 1990s state model lighting ordinance. The proposed ordinance is based on the 2020 state model lighting ordinance, which has several technical updates. This does not redefine construction as a basis for compliance. It does, however, introduce heightened regulations pertaining to repair, maintenance, and special event permitting rather than development, and it fits within the existing construction definition in our code. We did meet with hoteliers in February and March. I will point out any modifications that were made based on those meetings. This draft was assisted by the Sea Turtle Conservancy and National Wildlife Federation. We do have Katie Mastenbrook with the National Wildlife Federation on the call, as well as Stacy Gallagher with the Sea Turtle Conservancy. Recommendations were made on this ordinance by the Beach Stewardship Committee in November at a vote of 4-1 to this commission, and by the Planning Board 5-0 with comprehensive plan consistency finding in January of this year. So as I mentioned, probably the biggest change was an update to our technical standards. The current ordinance removes ineffective and ill-defined bulb types such as bug-type bulbs in favor of requiring long wavelength, those bulbs that are over 560 nanometers. That is something that the technical standards statewide have been updated to recognize over the last 30 years. It adds definitions for full cutoff and shielded lighting, shielded being, of course, a shield around the lighting, full cutoff being that it's directed downward. It has a cutoff that prevents light from shining upward or in a direction that is not intended. And those are examples on the right side of the screen from the FDEP Certified Wildlife Lighting Program. It requires glass visible from the beach to comply with voluntary model standards when updated. That is currently, based on the state's ordinance, 45% visible light transmittance. Lower is typically darker. And it adds requirements for the use of long wavelength bulbs in new pools when those lights would not be adverse to applicable safety laws. So there's some major changes from how construction applicability is triggered based on our current code. And again, this is applicable to structures that are visible from the beach. For any kind of construction or substantial improvement of a new building, so when there's new development taking place on a site that is visible from the beach, The entire building or structure must be compliant with the new construction standards based on this draft. Any kind of redevelopment or substantial improvement of the property's primary building, so in a case where you would potentially have a hotel with a few smaller bars or restaurants on the property as separate buildings, that would require full site compliance. Any kind of non-substantial addition to a building or structure, that addition must comply with the new construction standards. So the addition would need to have the turtle tin on the windows. Any kind of exterior lighting would need to be long wavelength, downward directed. For any kind of modification, repair, or replacement of existing windows, fixtures, or doors that would not constitute substantial improvement, those modified windows, fixtures, and doors would need to be made compliant with the new construction standards. And for any kind of maintenance of fixtures, windows, and doors that were installed prior to 2007, that date was selected because that is the current applicable standard for our lighting ordinance. They would be grandfathered until modified. The external lighting must comply in those situations. There were a few other changes that were made that staff considers to be major. It specifies code enforcement as the enforcing division for this ordinance. That is Division 44 of the Land Development Code. It updates the penalties. It assigns penalties to individuals when the violation is caused by an individual. It assigns to the property when it's caused by the property. That would include both development as well as special events. It requires any kind of screening vegetation to be Florida native. For existing lighting that does not fully comply with the current bulb and screening requirements, there is an allowance in our code to allow vegetation to provide that screening. There was an addition made based on the Beach Stewardship Committee's feedback that any kind of vegetation be Florida native. So we've added that into this ordinance. We require annual reporting to the City Commission and Beach Stewardship Committee. We tended to already provide that for the Beach Stewardship Committee, but this just codifies that requirement. And it prohibits use of transient such as handheld lighting, special event lighting during marine turtle season, that being May 1st to October 31st. So as I stated, staff did meet with hoteliers and the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce. There were a few recommendations. You can see those in the column on the left, any kind of changes made in the center column and whether their concerns were addressed. The first request had been that glass or film that is advertised as turtle glass or film would be considered compliant. Staff had requested that we receive product specifications. We need to ensure that the actual visible light transmittance is 45% or less based on the ordinance amendments. That is based on product specifications, not simply based on whether it's held out as turtle glass. That's not a common standard. It's more of a marketing term. So we did address that. They accepted that. We were not going to change that requirement within the code. They had asked for an increase in visible light transmittance to 45%. As I stated before, lower is better. It's usually darker. Our change was to make it applicable to the stricter of the mandatory Pinellas Coastal Construction Code or the voluntary state model code, that they are currently 45%, so they're in alignment with that request. However, should the optional model code update in the future, there is research that was just produced last year showing that 30% is a standard that really reduces disorientations and false crawls, that we would automatically update to that standard without any need to amend the code in the future. It would be 45% based on the state model and the county requirement. In the future, should the state model be reduced, we would automatically align with that lower standard. Talking about fireworks, that was something we had addressed in more detail within the continued ordinance. They had requested that fireworks be allowed within 200 feet from an active breeding and nesting site on private beach lands only. We did not change the current ordinance draft based on that request. This ordinance had been intended by the Beach Stewardship Committee as a backup option based on the continued ordinance. Their full recommendation had been a prohibition on fireworks on or over the beach year-round. This ordinance had contained the backup option, which was to prohibit fireworks on or over the beach during shorebird nesting and breeding season, as well as turtle nesting season. That's February 15th until October 31st. Of course, that would exclude New Year's Eve, but it would include the other holidays that typically have fireworks. We did not make any changes based on that. We kept in the change that the request, rather, that the Beach Stewardship Committee had made, which is that there be a blanket ban on fireworks fired from or over the beach from February 15th until October 31st. They'd asked that handheld and personal use transient lighting violations be cited to the individual rather than the property owner. That had been something that we had already intended based on the companion ordinance. For those who are using handheld lighting on the beach, the violation would be cited to the individual. If it's any kind of violation from any kind of transient lighting, like a special event lighting, a limited term lighting setup, that would still be cited to the property owner, those who were authorized for the special event. And they had also asked for an exemption from the special event lighting plan requirement for beach weddings. Those do not typically go through special event permitting. Those are something that are just allowed as a business tax receipt option for the hotels. We did agree to that. We did add language in there because that is not something that typically goes through the special event process. The exception to that would be if the wedding is conducted as part of a larger special event, if it was part of a stage setup, another kind of event that would require that there be a special event lighting plan submitted, they would be required to submit a plan in that instance. So we are asking for acceptance or modification of this ordinance on first reading, should the commission find it valid to make action on this tonight without the companion ordinance. I did want to point out that there are a few changes that would need to be made to this ordinance based on the continuation of Ordinance 2025-02. If you were looking to take action on this ordinance prior to the continued ordinance, we had removed the content from Section 44.3, which is content regulating activities during marine turtle nesting season. We had also made a few minor technical updates that had been put into the companion ordinance. We would likely move that content back into this ordinance with those minor technical updates. And as I mentioned before, this had been intended by the Beach Stewardship Committee and the recommendation from the Planning Board as a backup to the stricter fireworks standard in the companion ordinance. So if the City Commission would like to take action on what is in this ordinance, which would be a ban on fireworks on or over the beach during shorebird breeding, nesting, and turtle nesting seasons, that would eliminate the higher standard in the continued ordinance. So those are the two changes, at least that I've identified today, that we would likely bring back on a second reading if you would like this to continue separately from the companion. So based on that, we are asking for, or we are providing a few motion options based on the Commission's direction. The first could be a motion to approve this ordinance on first reading as written. As I said before, this does not have the higher fireworks standards, so it would be the ban during turtle and shorebird nesting and breeding seasons. There could be a motion to approve this ordinance with any modifications that you deem fit. Motion to deny on first reading, and if you feel the need to continue this to receive more information from staff or the public, we ask that you continue it to a date certain if you know. If not, we would pick up based on the ordinance that was continued tonight. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Marriott. I know there had to be some.
I'll start with a couple. Brandon, is there anything in the ordinance when it talks about visible light, any light that's visible from the beach? Is there anything that determines what height it's visible from? In other words, if it's visible when you're 6 feet tall, or is it visible from turtle head height, or what's the what's the determination there?
So as it's written, it is visible to an observer on the beach. That is consistent with the model lighting ordinance, the state model lighting ordinance rather. So that would include human height or turtle height or anywhere in between.
Or person standing on a chair, or if I'm sitting on someone's shoulders. Okay, and then on the slide when it talked about the things that trigger having to bring buildings into compliance, when you talk about here we go, full site, the entire building or structure must be compliant with the new construction standards. Is that still just the lighting that's visible from the beach, or does that mean that all of the lighting on the entire property, whether it's visible or not, has to be compliant?
That would be only visible from the beach. The one exception to that would be the standard is directly, indirectly, or cumulatively visible. So not that we have these type of developments in St. Pete Beach. They're not very frequent, but if there is a light of such intensity that the indirect effects are visible from the beach, they would need to bring that lighting into compliance. But any lighting facing toward Gulf Boulevard that's not visible from the beach would not need to be brought into compliance.
Okay, perfect. And then could you just clarify for me what is considered transient or handheld lighting?
So that would be anything like, trying to think of an event, torches or any kind of handheld flashlights or anything like that.
Okay.
Transient lighting can be both those features that are used as part of an event or any kind of site-placed features that are not intended to be operated permanently. So any kind of setup on the beach, if there were a stage on the beach, any lighting associated with that would be transient because it would be part of the special event.
Got it,
setup.
okay. So it's not intended to be a way to find somebody who's standing on the beach right after sunset and looks at their phone and somebody goes, oh my gosh, that's making light. That's not what they're
No, and
considered.
we do have a standard in here that it needs to be flagrant, it needs to be intentional, not that occurs very frequently, but if it is, it's a basis for citation.
Okay, perfect. And then my last question is the special event and wedding lighting comment, and this may be something that you don't know, which is fine, but I mean, are there very many weddings that take place after dark? Is that even something that ever comes into effect? I see a head behind you nodding, so it must be. I've never seen one, but that doesn't mean they don't happen.
I think the concern and what came back was a request for a 1-hour relief. I believe photos at sunset they could still be taking photos. It's not intended to be a morning, from what I understand.
Okay.
It's really just a 1-hour float on that. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I've got right now.
Commissioner Robinson?
Does this apply only to hotels?
No, this is any structure visible from the beach.
So it also applies to Gulfront condos?
Correct. Right.
So did we engage condo owners in this conversation?
Not directly, just through the public meetings that we've held and the workshops with the Beach Stewardship Committee, but they were not reached out to directly. No.
Yeah, I've done some of those workshops, or called workshops, but there's not public involvement necessarily in some of those. Okay, so I'm just seeing, I'm assuming we did the 2 meetings with the hoteliers?
Correct. We did meet with them
And we
twice.
didn't do 2 meetings with residents for condo owners or put that out there to them?
Correct. Not.
That's disappointing. I had a couple comments. One was on 44.8B3. And it should specify the long wavelength. And then 44.10B, having a date range for the shorebird and sea turtle nesting, because there's no date range in there. And 44.12 enforcement, being more specific as to when and how often lighting inspections will incur. And it's ideal to have at least 2 complete surveys of the entire beach in April and June, which coordinates with the start of sea turtle nesting. And it's especially important in June because that is the start of the hatchling season. And then we have a baseline on that. And what is, you said the greater of the 30, the VLT, sorry, and that just came about?
Correct. There was research published last year that showed that 30% VLT film or treatment would reduce disorientations and false crawls. The state has not updated their model ordinance to reflect that at this time, but once it's updated, it was written that that would automatically trigger based on our code. It would be 45% until that change occurs. It would be 30% thereafter, or whatever rate.
Right,
they
whatever
choose.
they determine it,
Correct.
there is, okay, and that, at that point, anybody who'd put on 45 would need to update that to the current.
So only based on the construction standards. So if they were replacing a window that had the 45% film on it, at that point they would be required to bring it up to 30, but it would not be an automatic trigger for every beachfront property owner. It would only be based on the.
Is there a trigger for every beachfront owner to have some sort of reduced, the appropriate lighting and/or film?
So there are existing lighting standards, particularly for lighting within buildings that is visible from the beach, but there are options for those who have not replaced windows or constructed new, where they can just put up curtains or move the light source away from the window. There's no requirement for the film for those existing structures.
But if there is a requirement for them to beware or make, mitigate their lighting?
And it could be turning the light off at night or just putting up curtains, right? That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Causey?
Thank you, Brandon. So on the screening plants that we were talking about being native, would it be grandfathered in that if people have existing plants? Is that explicitly stated?
It may not be explicitly stated. If so, it can be. The intent is for any new plantings to.
Well, I would just specify that we either add any new on that, or else say that it's okay grandfathering. So our ordinance with the transmissivity, we're talking about basing it on the state law change. Does the county also specify something? So I'll be I'm wondering if we would like to comply with the state and county both, because you have the contractors doing work, and it seems like we'd want to be consistent on that countywide.
We can be. We can keep it at 45%. The county also specifies 45%, so currently they are aligned at 45.
Currently, yeah.
We have seen research, and again, I don't know to what extent it's been vetted by the state, but 30% is what appears to actually move the needle on disorientation. So once that's been vetted, that's why we included that language to update based on that evaluation. But we could keep it aligned at 45%.
Well, or I'm just suggesting that maybe we could change to comply with the state and when the county complies. Like when the county changes the ordinance, then we would. That's what I'm thinking.
We could do that.
And then as far as transient handheld lights, we're talking about flashlights, we're talking about motorized vehicles possibly, we're talking about cell phone lights, and we're on the beach at night, and there are chairs there are posts, poles, and obstacles. So just out of concern for safety, I think this one is an issue. I see a difference between a flashlight that someone's using temporarily and maybe walking along the beach, probably along the water for that matter, versus a light that's in a hotel or condo that's shining all the time. And I'm thinking about what causes a crawl in the wrong direction, and I see a huge difference between a flashlight and a permanent fixed light on a light post on Gulf Boulevard or a condo that's tall. So I think that one's worth thinking about a little more. And also, I'm thinking relative to this transient light, the flashlights, it might be better to think about enforcing bad behavior there, like harassing the wildlife with the light, rather than saying you can't have a flashlight on the beach at night, just for safety of humans also.
I understand that, and that makes sense. I think what was lost in the split, and just reviewing this one tonight, is that that regulation was in the continued ordinance, and the content we'll be bringing back into this ordinance, I think, makes that more clear, that it's intended for flagrant, intentional harassment, not necessarily for someone trying to find their way back up to a dune walkover. It's just content that was lost in the split that I think will be more evident the next time this is brought back.
Yeah, I don't know about I believing in no flashlights on the beach at night. So I would want to look at the wording on that and think about that some. And all right, let's see, what else did I have here? So the height, if we're going to be giving people violations for having their door open at night in a condo, and the curtains aren't drawn because they want to see the ocean and hear the waves, I guess, or have some fresh breeze of air. I think little details are important about that. So maybe we need to say what height we're measuring from. You know, maybe the people have their lights turned down really low, but they're still getting a code violation for having their door open at night. But I'm not sure. I think that's the kind of thing that we do want more input on from the condos that are on the beach, and the hotels too, for that matter. I don't, not following that totally. Could you tell me again what 44.3 said? That was,
So the current adopted standards are regulations on things like removing cabanas when they're in the vicinity of a active nest and things like that, filling in holes on the beach. Those are the standards that were moved that will be relocated back to this section. And I believe there was also a standard in there stating that the prohibition on transient lighting is really for harassment, not so much just someone using a flashlight on the beach. I don't believe that was intentional, but when it's brought back in, I hope that context is there.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Robinson.
I believe there's also the thing with flashlights that you can have them, but you need to have them the appropriate color or wavelength or filter, correct?
You can have amber, correct.
So you could still have them, it's the color that they are. So if we are going to get rid of, or not get rid of flashlights, just specify what color that they need to be. I mean, that's another option. And I did not see in here where it was with the BLT 45%. I know that I saw the portion where it says about the bringing the product info, but I didn't see where it said that we would be following Pinellas County or the state.
So that is in the definition of tinted glass in section 44.2, and we can add 45%, not to exceed 45%, but it does cite the stricter of the model lighting ordinance or the Pinellas Gulf Beaches Coastal Construction Code. That's where that 45% is found, and we can just add the number in. That won't be a problem.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Marriott.
Yeah, I just wanted to real quick double check with my fellow commissioners if we do feel comfortable going forward with this ordinance completely separate from the one that we've continued, with the number of things that are kind of dependent on the other. That if we've postponed the other, if it makes sense to postpone this one as well, because there's some things that kind of work in concert with each other. And to Commissioner Robinson's point, you know, if we're gonna try to get more community input from, you know, if we're concerned that we don't have enough community input from the beachfront property owners that aren't businesses but that are residents, maybe it makes more sense to hear them both at the same time, in concert with each other.
Understood.
I think this one is almost there. It's getting close, much closer than maybe the other one, but I think extending that out to residents would be, condo owners would be great. And carrying it with the other one.
I'll ask you a different set of questions, Brandon, please. So I think whether Commissioner Causey intended to or not, I think he was kind of alluding that the devils are in the details, right? We've got these policies, and then somebody opens their door, just getting some fresh air, and all of a sudden they're being cited or things like that. And I think it's the unintended effects that we need to be careful of as a city as we drop things into ordinances. So, I understand construction and how we construct new buildings or wings or whatever it is, or replace my windows. All of that I get. And then I think about, for example, fireworks, right? What's our current policy with regards to fireworks on the beach right now?
It's discretionary based on the application, the date, the location. It's decided by either the city manager's office or the city commission, depending on the event. So there are no specific standards. Now there are, of course, fire separation requirements imposed by the fire marshal, but there's no specific setback standard otherwise.
But there is review, and it requires a permit by the city to do so, correct? Nobody can just walk out their back of their door or come off the beach and start lighting fireworks off. And
that's correct, yes.
Not be fined, right? So I begin to ask, what's broken? What's broken with the current policy, in that it requires a review, it requires some due diligence by the city staff and ultimately the city manager, and if appealed by the commission, ultimately, to decide whether you can have something like that, right? As of right now, I can't just walk out the back of anybody's house and just start cracking off fireworks if I choose to, right? And so, I think about what we're codifying into official rules here, and certain dates that you can't do anything. And I'm just concerned about the devil's in the details kind of pieces of this, frankly. And so I think I'm kind of hearing is going towards we need to gather more input and more feedback. And so I think that's fine with me. I'd love to hear more. But I think, I want to know what's broken before we try and fix something. That's really where I'm at.
Are we going to hear from some of our turtle experts?
Yes.
Yes, hi, I'm sorry. It's a little hard to hear, so I'm making sure that I can hear where our opportunity is to talk. Thank you all for giving Katie and I the opportunity to speak at this meeting. First of all, I just want to say I think it's very clear the city of St. Pete Beach values our coastal wildlife and truly cares about our economy and all of our important beach habitats. So I just want to thank you all for undergoing this process of updating your lighting ordinance. A lot has happened in research and technology since 2007 when it comes to wildlife lighting. So we definitely applaud a lot of the major changes that have been made in this version, particularly the requirement for long wavelength lamps, which we as STC. We've retrofitted over 350 properties with wildlife lighting in Florida using this technology. So we know that that works. We also definitely appreciate the transient lighting requirement to not harass sea turtles. From our perspective, we feel like that is the bare minimum. While transient lights may not be a problem on the city of St. Pete Beach currently, there are places in Florida where there are hundreds of flashlights on the beach every single night during nesting season. So regardless of what the coastal properties are, even properties we've retrofitted, there are hundreds of flashlights on the beach every night, which will certainly disorient sea turtles. And while that might not be an issue now in the city, it could be an issue in the future. So that was something I wanted to mention. Other positive things that we found with this, adding the definition for long wavelength, adding definitions for shielded and full cutoff are great additions. When it comes to the tinting, before this meeting, I did send you all a letter with photos showing examples of what the 45% VLT looks like in practice. Unfortunately, this has been named as turtle glass, so a lot of people think that they can use it and their properties are it's effective in blocking interior light. But when you look at it, it's just not. It's allowing almost 50% of all of that light from inside to outside. And even if you've retrofitted the exterior lights, that interior light can still be a problem with the 45% VLT. So we're definitely recommending, it is our job to put the best recommendations out there for turtles. So we do recommend that you go with a 30% or less tint transmittance. But ultimately, those were just a summary of our comments. We are incredibly happy that the city is updating this with advances in research and technology and caring about our sea turtles because they face a lot of threats. And Florida is incredibly important for global populations of sea turtles. So if you have any specific questions, please let me know. And then also, I know my counterpart, Katie, probably wants to say something as well.
Yeah, so just echoing everything that Stacy just said, really appreciate you guys being so considerate of our, special wildlife that we have here in Florida, and everything. I echo everything that she said. So I don't really have anything to add, but I will be open to questions that you might have for myself and Stacy.
Thank you. I'm looking around for questions. All right. Thank you.
I think we have public comment, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy Perry.
Hi, I'm Cindy Perry, and I live on Boca Ciega Isle Drive. And I am a black skimmer advocate, and I'm representing St. Pete Audubon this evening. Glad you asked some of the questions you asked, because I have answers for you. I am not representing the planning board or having anything to do with the planning board. Okay, so black skimmers, threatened species, very special birds. They skim the water. The lower beak is longer than the top beak. And all they eat is fish. You can't feed them. In fact, if you tried, you'd probably just attract seagulls or crows, which are not. That's a predator. That's not good. You can see the babies there. They are very, very good parents. One parent always stays with the nest, the chick or the egg. If you observe them, you can actually watch them switch. They're very devoted, very, very sweet birds. Some of the questions you've asked tonight are already covered because Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission in September of 2022 put a document out, 77 pages, and it has to do with species conservation measures and permitting guidelines. And there are several Florida administrative codes. There's more than this that affect these birds. I did not put them all on here. But the main thing is that it does prohibit take of these species, which includes harm and harassment. And then it goes on to explain what harassment is. And fireworks are in there. But I did want to, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I thought I would take a minute and show you exactly what happens to these birds when fireworks are going off around them. So this is actually on St. Pete Beach. These are real St. Pete Beach birds in a colony. They nest on the sand. They need a wide open, undisturbed beach. And what you can see here is you can see the adults sitting on their nest with their eggs or their chicks. You see a little bird on the right there that doesn't have tail feathers. He can't fly yet. He's a baby, probably a couple of weeks old. On the right, you're going to see fireworks go off. And all of a sudden, all the adults that are protecting their chicks and their eggs get frightened and they take off. This is called flushing the colony. This is harassment. Now, they don't want to be gone from their chicks very long, or their eggs, so they circle back and they try to settle down back in their nests. Now, you can also see in this that there is a storm going on in the background, so you will see lightning, and you will see that the lightning does not bother them. They know lightning from fireworks. So now the parents are trying to locate their nests, they're trying to calm down, they're trying to get settled. The babies are scared. They will run away. Oh, here goes the fireworks again. Colony flushes again. Tremendous waste of energy. On 4th of July, we lost 30% of the
Continue. Go ahead and continue.
Okay. So one 4th of July, because the chicks scatter, they're not protected. The crows, the seagulls, anything will get them. So these are fireworks that the city, when they do their fireworks, they don't put them anywhere near here. So I'm just concerned about nesting season. So if we can, I don't know, I'm not getting this to go forward, but yes. Well, at any rate, I don't know how to make it advance. It's not. I don't know if the IT guy is there. Thank you so much. That's all right. It's okay. Okay, here we go. So this is just another slide showing the other things that will disturb them are drones. This colony that you see flushing on the bottom is flushed because a drone came by, or some other kind of unmanned aircraft. And the other thing is, I don't know if you can see the bicycle tracks in that picture right around the 8 and 7 where the date is. You can see the bike path going through there. And that chick was run over. People don't realize these birds can't fly yet. And so, they don't get out of the way. When something comes, their instinct is to hunker down and hide. They're camouflage. That's why they're born the color of sand. Okay, so that's it. Any questions on black skimmers?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Cindy, what is their nesting period date was?
It varies. Usually they have started nesting by the end of April, early May. They come in and they gather, so you don't really see them when it's outside of nesting season. Their numbers are way down. And by the way, there's only and Dr. Forrest can speak to this better than I can, but there's probably only like a dozen colonies in the state of Florida. And we have one of the largest colonies in the state. So when we take a hit, it affects the whole population. But they will start to gather. They actually are monogamous. They will find their mate from several seasons and get together and start raising chicks.
They start gathering what, February?
They probably more like March, April.
March, April.
And they just look for a wide open beach to nest.
Thank you.
Joe Woodlansky.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm here to be a whipping post for for everybody. Basically, there's been a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know how many of you know anything about sea turtles, why they come, when they come, where they're coming from, things like that. And we're having, obviously, lighting issues, and there's been a lot of misinformation. Transient lighting. There's a company that is a shark fishing company that uses our beach with big bright spotlights and stuff like that. No reason for that on our beach. They're definitely not engaged in anything that's lawful, and we see that. And Envoy Point, they have the weddings, and they're out there late at night, same thing, with big bright spotlights. The trade winds is another one. People go out and they pull their beach cabanas from the trade winds down to the water's edge and have a party all night. And I don't want to say who or what, but somebody told them it was okay to do that. Somebody, law enforcement type of person, said it's okay for them to do that. But as far as the lighting goes, there's people complaining because they got written up this year and they had never got wrote up before, and that's because they're actually trying to enforce the lighting ordinance, and people are fighting back. I don't know what they got against changing a light bulb, but, you know, same with who had the cell phone thing. All you gotta do is go like, oh, there's your red light right there for reading your phone when you're on the beach. Turtle safe, end of story. And I would be happy to take any questions from anybody about anything related to the sea turtles, from anybody, since I got 30 seconds left. But I mean, I could talk all day about sea turtles, believe me. I've been doing this for 25 years on St. Pete Beach, and hopefully I'll get a few more years in before. And does anybody have any questions for me from the commissioners or anything? Yes, sir.
Joe, what's the number one reason for false crawls, in your expert opinion?
Lighting is one. This year we have a new problem, and that is that our fine officers of the law patrol the beach at night. They've already ran over 7 of our sea turtle tracks. I mean, that as soon as a turtle sees that, their bright lights coming up the beach, they're gone, you know. And that's just one thing. I got videos of Memorial Day weekend where a turtle was coming ashore and a bunch of people ran in the water and they're like, this is so cool and all that. And turtle just said, see you later. And our nesting numbers are way down this year as opposed to previous years. And a lot of that is this kind of, you know, allowing shark fishing with bright spotlights and, you know, just in general. I mean, we do our lighting survey every year in May, and then we'll do it again in July. So already, obviously, some of these people have been contacted by code enforcement, and they're not happy about it. And I don't know why. The turtles have been here for over 200 million years, and these people, I don't know, they don't want to change a light bulb. Pretty much all I have to say, unless anybody has any other questions.
I have a couple.
Sure.
How many hatchlings do we lose every year?
It's a good question. Probably lose 1,000.
And for the shark fishing, we've been kind of talking about that as well. Is this something new you've seen?
Yes.
Okay. Relatively new within the last year, or do you think this season?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure you probably know who it is too, so I'm not.
I don't know nothing about nothing.
Okay, I'm not going to ask that question. So it's good to know, because this is kind of the first we're starting to hear. So it's offshore, they're chumming, they're having the
Right
lights.
from
they're doing-
shore.
And they're from shore too, okay.
Yeah, none of that, you know, they got their drones to take their lines out farther out over the water and drop the bait way out there, stuff like that. So it's just not designed, at least for summertime, shark fishing on our beaches. They're definitely having an adverse effect on the sea turtles, along with just your basic lighting. A lot of turnover because of hotels since the hurricane, and a lot of the hotels, some of them are still not even open, but a lot of them we have to go and work with and get them, you know, to understand the ordinance and stuff like that. And it takes a lot of time, you know. But
And as far as handheld flashlights, red light or the appropriate color is okay to use, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if you have an iPhone, all you got to do is, you know, all you got to do is take it and click the side button 3 times, and it's red.
Okay, great.
And you can read your phone on the beach all night, and not a problem.
Yeah, I was out at the beach this past weekend and got to see, after sunset, a family out there with flashlights and the
Uh-huh.
whole bit, and playing some sort of game with lights on, and yeah.
Yeah.
And then I could see another one.
The hoteliers could do more too to
Yeah, it was their guess. Right.
Inform the public, because they don't know, a lot of them coming in from Minnesota or
They have no idea.
Nevada or wherever they're coming from. It's a great place to come to. And
Beautiful.
Let's keep it that way.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you for your time, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Deb Scheckner?
Good evening, Deborah Scheckner, Bocasega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. Those red flashlights, by the way, are 560 NM or greater. And usually you hand out small ones that you can probably buy almost anywhere. I think that could be a good answer for maybe some of the hotels. I don't know. I'm not going to call it a red light district, so I'm not sure we want to go there. I think it would be very important for us to make a binder for the beach ordinances when everything is fully voted on for the Sheriff's Department. And the Sheriff's Department can take that binder, they can copy it, and give it to the police officers. Because too often they are not aware of what our beach regulations are. They're great about everything else, but there's been some confusion at times regarding our beach. And I think it's really important for them to be an advocate for us because they hold the authority, and especially if people are doing anything to harass. And I've watched kids play ball in the middle of the birds, and it's not only protected species that are nesting now. All shorebirds are nesting now. So even though they may not be endangered, they're still nesting. And I've witnessed it too many times when people are going through the nests and they're not aware. And honestly, part of that's education and part of that's on the back of the hotels. They need to let their people come and know. When I go to the East Coast, Hutchinson Island area, they take extra great care of their sea turtles to the nth degree. And the hotels all participate, not as many here, but they also educate every single person who comes in, and they give them a pamphlet, and they actually talk about it instead of just read this and do this. So we may need to ask them to do that. I think they might have before these new ownerships when it was family owner operated, but also their red flashlight, you don't shine them on the turtles or the nests or anything else. They just not fall in a hole. That's the other problem in the beach. People leave holes that are very, very deep. And I know people have gotten hurt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Richardson, 5830 Bahama Way South. So, of course, first, I would love for this to be denied, to be kind of taken over to where we can all, as Scott says, devil's in the details and really kind of scrutinize this before we just vote on the first reading. I concur. My husband says, are you ever going to be able to go on the beach and walk it without getting upset? Once I was educated by Turtle Lisa, AKA Lisa Reich. I bought a bunch of turtle lights off Amazon, I think like $4 a piece, and I literally would educate people and give them a turtle light. This is something the hotels in the city, all the stores can like really make this a big thing and embrace the turtles, not look at it as the enemy, but whether it's coloring books, kids' little stories, they can educate and put them on the door knockers and really allow and let them know about the filling in your holes, don't leave things behind. Question, who is responsible on the beach for filling in holes and making sure debris is put away or taken away during turtle season? Is that the cities or the hotels? Because I know it's not being done. If you've ever seen, and I can send it out, a video of a turtle going to lay eggs, oh my gosh, you are cheering. These turtles, it's tough. And they do it to lay their eggs because they come back to where they were hatched. That's where they lay their eggs. And it is difficult on regular flat sand, let alone with obstacles. Something that I didn't see in this, and I didn't look over it very well, but one of the many meetings before with previous commissions, they were trying to get the hotels to put away their loungers during turtle season, or at least stack them to get rid of all of those loungers, because if you look at an aerial view, it is crazy with all the loungers lined up, and how can turtles come and lay eggs with them all out there? And I think if that's not in this ordinance, it needs to be addressed, because that was something hotels push back. Hotels in Miami do it, much bigger. There's no reason to not do that. Let me see what else I have here. I think that's about it. And thank you so much, Karen, for your recommendation to move this along, and Scott for recognizing the devil's in the detail. Lisa also, of course, and everyone else, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
That's all I have. Oh, wait, sorry, John Kurzman.
I'm glad we didn't do 4 things I had to stand up for today. John Kurzman, be here on the way. You know, it was great to hear some of the stories from Turtle Joe. I hope that's the name I can use for you. But I don't know that we're really addressing all the scenarios he mentioned or that we heard about. We heard about, you know, drones during turtle season. We heard about a number of things. So I think we need to go back, as it sounds like you may be doing, do a community, you know, town hall again. Let people talk about just turtle ordinances. You know, the other thing is, I'm speaking as myself, I'm not speaking as a beach steward. But, you know, the people who focus on turtles and the best thing for turtles and so forth. And it's up to you really to be that first layer that balances everything. And I say that because, first of all, if this was easy, Fish and Wildlife would have adopted the state ordinance and made it the regulation for the state. They didn't. They want the different communities to figure out what's appropriate for their community and go from there. Now, I happened to Google, I should tell you, my wife has been upset because we got turtle windows in our house. Turns out they were 20%. And it's a dungeon. And you have to think about the fact that it's not just stopping the light from going out at night, it stops the light from coming in during the day. So, you know, I think that you should allow the private homeowners, or maybe the hotels, to have a choice. If they want to close their curtains, let them choose that. They don't need to be able to stop light during the day for the turtles. And so there's, you know, now you can get an Alexa, and hope it doesn't do anything. You can get a device where and it automatically closes your curtains at a certain time of night. It's not that expensive. So it says here that the lighting code is, BLT is 30% already. I didn't go into all the details, but some people may be disturbed that all of a sudden they have to go lower. So I just did this in chronological order in the order in the ordinance. But you know, they use the term visible light, indirect light, direct light, visible light, and cumulative light. And they don't define cumulative light. But you know, when I heard that Shadrack's was already getting a ticket, and they're closer to the bay than they are the Gulf, I'm like, how far are these rules going? Meanwhile, we have condos right on the beach that still have outdoor lights. I think we should address that, and we need to define how far do these rules go? You know, what lights really matter? And, you know, I like Commissioner Marriott's question, because I put my head down on the sand, and I said, oh, I don't see the lights. Well, then why do you care what someone standing up can see? It should be focused on helping the turtles. And I do have some questions for the experts, maybe if during a workshop, because I've had scientifically, I've had people complain about the dim lights in Gulf Boulevard even. They're like, how many people have to die from these dim lights? So we have to look at the whole picture and find out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Reale?
Hi, good evening. Kevin Reale of 401 East Jackson Street. I did work with staff and help with some of the hotels, and to Commissioner Robinson's point, of course, we're happy if the community wants more input. Some of the things that I'm actually not going to talk about a lot of the details we talked about today. I would just say that the current ordinance and some of the historic problems with the ordinance are actually legal inconsistencies, the way things are defined, the way one section of an ordinance might be different than another. And we did work with staff pretty significantly on trying to identify a lot of those, because those are very important. And so what I would just say is that I do think the two ordinances that you were considering, they do point to one another in some very minor ways, and changing that on the fly is often what can cause those mistakes to happen. So I just concur with, I think what the sense I'm getting from the commission, that they should probably move together so that those inconsistencies can be avoided. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Maldonado.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from the comments was that we need to address the drone disturbance. And I think Commissioner Robinson talked about it, and this will be brought up later, as well as banning the searchlights that are being used by fishermen of any sort. So, thank you.
Commissioner Causey.
So the comments now just highlight the things I've had from businesses along Gulf Boulevard and people who are crossing Gulf Boulevard and drivers in District 3 on Gulf Boulevard. Now that we've put in the amber lighting on Gulf Boulevard instead of the white lighting, it's truly a feeling of not enough light for many people. And I think that's a safety concern. I've initiated a conversation with the state can we put in brighter amber lights. Maybe we need to consider more amber lighting of the proper wavelength so that drivers don't feel like they're straining to see the road, to see people who may be crossing the road at a place where they're not supposed to cross the road, and even applies to the crosswalks themselves, because since we have the amber lighting on the crosswalks, now that we've added amber lighting on the telephone poles, it diminishes the contrast. So it's, if we had red lights flashing, for example, then you would have more contrast then. So during the daytime, amber lights might be fine for contrast, but now at night with amber lighting on the telephone pole, you don't have hardly any contrast. So I think that's a safety concern relative, and this does highlight how far do the rules go. And I think the line has to be drawn somewhere around human safety, and because it's a shared environment. It's not just a natural habitat here. I think that's a main point I want to make there. So.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the first reading of ordinance 2026-16 to a date to be determined, along with the other beach ordinance.
Second.
Commissioner Causey?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Commissioner Tate?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, I think we are on to items for discussion. And I don't think there was anybody that mentioned anything. So with that,
Is this our item for discussion?
Well, yes. Do we want to go into reports before then, or go straight into this and then come back?
I think we go straight into this.
Do reports at the very end. All right, Here we go. All right, thank you. So for those of you in the room, we did not get through our budgeting process earlier. There was a workshop that was going on. We stopped it mid-flight to move to our commission meeting, and now we're going to return right back where we left off, so you understand what's going on. Fascinating stuff if you care to stay.
Thank you.
Yes, please, thank you.
Can we go back to item 1?
I will say, I thought we were around the 27 to 30-ish range, somewhere up in there was the, I think Mr. Mills will know
Ryan,
where
could we
were.
get the presentation back up?
Sorry?
So I think we're just wrapping up, right?
That'd be fine with me, to be frank with you, because I think there's diminishing returns, as I said earlier, but here we go.
22.
All right, so I think we left off on this moderate ranked projects, ranking 22 through 28.
Yeah.
And we had decided that everything was fine with the exception of a pause on the 3 million for ranked item 27 until we get through the other pages, and then we would revisit whether that 3 million stays, partially stays, or gets redistributed to other projects in fiscal year 27.
Okay.
So if we're okay, we'll move to the next slide.
I know you want to. I'm sorry. I'm still mentally stuck on items 23 and 23, the first two. I'm just looking at big dollar amounts, to be frank with you. And I think we're committing, if I'm hearing it, $5.5 million between those two projects for resurfacing. And I also look over and I see on my list, I see a 25-year lifespan on at least the first item, the Bocasega Drive, and 20 on the second. And so it begs the question, if we invest in this over the next 7 years, are we kind of done for 13 years, or does the one of those I thought was a recurring instead of a one-time? I could be wrong. Yes.
Yes, right. The roadway rehabilitation is a reoccurring program, whereas the Bocasega would be more of a one-time project until that reaches the
And
end
then
of
it
its
would
useful life.
rotate into the recurring kind of bucket once it's done, right?
Correct.
So this recurring we'll just be dealing with in perpetuity.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have a sense, and I realize you've adjusted it over 7 years, and so I guess 1.5 times 7 is about 9.5, so yeah, it's about right. So, okay. Is your anticipation we'll spend 1.5 every year, kind of on some road somewhere in the city that's not a state road or a?
Correct.
Okay. Is that historically is that kind of in line with where we've spent historically?
We've been kind of up and down historically. In recent years, we haven't been resurfacing, as much as we would plan to. So that number may go down, but at the same time, construction prices aren't getting any cheaper. So I think that 1.5 is a pretty good number to be at for now.
Does that include the shell lining, or is that a separate roadway rehab?
That most of the shell work is out of our operations budget. But if we were to do, a full sale replacement, they would fall out of this program. Unless we were to, separately, we used to have an alleyway rehabilitation program. So without that separate line item, it would all be encapsulated in this line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that was my set of questions, so unless there's others. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Clausen.
I have just left it on the green, but I could ask. So, is there any coordination between the rehab of the reclaimed water lines, and then of course there's the storm drains, with paving?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to strategize the roads that we repave out of that roadway rehabilitation to be the same roads that we replace reclaimed laterals on.
So one of the most common things I notice is that we have potholes everywhere, and after we patch the reclaimed water repairs, it settles, just like you mentioned earlier, but it never gets fixed back to the way it was before the water leak.
So that would be this program then, to do the full mill and resurface of the entire roadway width. So right now, when we repair those reclaim, we just do a patch, just in that isolated area. Whereas when we do the mill and resurface, it's a clean surface throughout. So you remove those spotty patches throughout.
Can we, since we're talking about years of living with a patch, is there a way that we can come back and revisit that and bring the patch back up to the level of the road after, I don't know, however long? Because we just forget about it, and
We can. I think we need to do a better job of making sure the the materials that are being put back in place when that patch job is being, that they're clean, dry materials, not wet, dirty materials that we're reusing. That'll help the integrity of that patchwork. So I think twofold. I think we can do a little bit better job on how we're performing those patches, but two, I think that's something we need to monitor long term.
Well, unless we are compacting whatever we put in there, it's going to settle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should be compacting. I think the main issue, like I said, is what materials put back in there that is compacted. We should be using clean material, not just reusing what was in there.
But just to clarify that we have a separate maintenance contract for potholes, so correct?
Correct.
So Quick Fix, if you see a pothole that's not adequately addressed, submit a Quick Fix?
Submit a Quick Fix, and that would, most situations would be handled out of our operations budget.
Right, but not out of this.
So that'd be our process, because we know that it's going to settle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we know, it's going to settle, and that road may not be prioritized for a full resurface for years to come. Then we would have to monitor those patches.
So the answer is C, Quick Fix.
Contract.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Commissioner Merritt.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something that I'm assuming, but I just want to make sure I'm right. And I think that a lot of Commissioner Causey's questions come from a history of the city both not really having a very good program for addressing the reclaimed water laterals, and then not necessarily coordinating that with road resurfacing. But what I'm hearing here tonight is that now if we have a program going forward that's addressing these reclaimed water laterals so that they're getting actually replaced and fixed, not just patched when they break, and that as we coordinate that with the road resurfacing, that over time the problems that we're seeing with the reclaimed water leaks getting fixed 3 times and the pothole sitting there and then the road getting patched and then it failing again, that those problems are slowly over 3 to 5 years are going to get significantly better because we now have this plan for addressing it in a more holistic fashion. And so I'm less concerned about, I mean, it is still a concern because it's what we're living with today, right? But I feel like we have a pretty good plan going forward with addressing that in a more holistic fashion with kind of this more long-term planning that we're doing that hadn't really been done in the past.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, honestly, if the word that I'm going to put out to everyone is if you have a pothole, do see Quick Fix, and the city's going to show up next week and they're going to fix it for you. I think we'll be very happy about that. I mean, we'll get you won't be trying to avoid the things by going over into the other lane.
I've always loved having a pothole on my street. It keeps people from driving too fast. I don't want anyone to call them in.
Road calming measure.
Exactly.
I wanted to talk about the priority items 27 for just 1 second because we had an audience comment on that one. And I thought that was a good point, that if we get our WSP engineering design back in, say, February, then it would be nice to have money allocated for that. Would we be able to do a mid-year readjustment for that if we don't have the design done, and then we could allocate it at that time, and for now we could leave it in the budget just in case?
I believe so, but I'll let Devin clarify.
Good evening, Devin Schmidt, Finance Director for the record. Yes, we could absolutely do a mid-year amendment. We could, it doesn't have to just be a mid-year amendment. We could do an amendment to capital projects at any time of the year. We just try to keep it into one condensed format. So we could certainly bring back an amendment.
Okay, yeah, I was just hoping that we wouldn't have to wait if we get a report back. So maybe we should be more clear on when we think we'll get the report back to be able to make that decision for sure. But
Well, and I think in the interest of, like the city manager said, being able to plan, putting money aside and planning for the future, it's possible that what we might decide by the time we get to the end of this is that, let's leave $1 million there or $1.5 million in that box so that we're both prepared to get started on something if that's where we go. But it's not necessarily setting aside the full $3 million in a time when just from pure time and labor constraints, there's no way to spend that. I mean, I don't see any way of spending that $3 million in that amount of time. But if we just drop the number down a bit, we're still prepared for the future, but we're not tying up quite as much money when we need it other places.
I like that.
I guess it depends on how much money we would need to initiate the project. Just say we did get an engineering design in February. What would it, do we have any idea how much money we might want to have before the 2028 budget?
No, not at this
idea.
point.
I think the challenge with this project is no matter what phase you want to do, it's going to be in the multi-millions of dollars.
Yep.
So I can't do a budget amendment if I don't have any money to give you.
Yeah.
So it's all going to come down to money. And if you set aside a certain amount to get us started, to have money to leverage for grant matching, that's one strategy. But even $3 million isn't going to be enough, is what I'm trying to tell you. So if you want to use your capital now for something else and put a partial amount there to hold so that we can keep moving,
And then reallocate.
it wouldn't require a budget amendment. If there's any money in that project, it doesn't require a budget amendment to spend that money. It requires us to bring you a contract for approval for services, and then you would be authorizing that appropriation. So,
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable with the not cost-effective rating. Is that the only one that we have that says that?
That was the only one, and that's just because of the timing. That was the application we submitted last year for that Department of Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant. But I would say, I think we'd be in a better position for this project to be cost-effective if we had more information to provide with that.
Yeah, I mean, right now, pardon the pun, they've essentially said it's a sunken project, right? So.
Well, and regardless of what the grant funding comes back as, I mean, I think it's an absolute possibility that we'll get through this study and we'll get through some community input and we'll look at the total dollar amount that it's going to cost to fix that problem, and that it may be that a large enough percent of the community goes, we're not willing to do what it costs to make that happen.
They will say it's not cost-effective.
It's not cost effective. and that doesn't mean we don't need to get all the information and that we don't need to, follow the process and figure out where we're at. But I, like that's why we don't have allocated, if we knew that was the most important thing to do, we would get rid of the next 5 pages of this and put all of that money in that box, right? And so I think the question is just what's the balance of the dollar amount that we want to hold there to get us started if that's what we're doing.
Let me ask a quick question. Just as much as I could theoretically put $3 million into it, and then we choose that we're not going to use it because of all the things we said, and we can reallocate that somewhere else, just move it somewhere else, right? And so I put, I'm being a little facetious here, but I put $1 here, and then I want to bring 299, 2.9 million in. The process is the same. There's no more approvals to bring money in versus leave it out, right?
you just have to make a decision to defund something.
Right, understood.
Bring
right.
the funding over.
Or go to somewhere if we choose not to spend it at all, right?
Right.
And so we're just deciding to transfer money between projects. And
Or you
so-
could transfer it to the resiliency fund and not have it assigned to a project. And you're just building your resiliency fund, which I think, what's the fund balance right now? About 3.8? So you could just decide, we know we have all these resiliency projects going on. We know we have a large study. So it's easy, Because once you allocate this to another project, it signals to the public services director, go do this project.
Okay,
And
got
so
it.
the money's gone. Or you have to take it back and you have to say, well, now we're not gonna pave your road, you know, Q Street,
Understood.
because we decided to take it and give it to, and that just, it ends up being
Sure. It's messy.
messy and divisive and people get upset. So it's better just to put it in a holding. If you wanna keep this in the resiliency space, we have a fund for you. So that's another idea.
And I would just add, at the expense of another thing that we may not get to, because at some point we're
That
going to have
is
to draw a line,
correct.
right? And
That
that's
is-
what I'm saying. We're holding money to potentially use for this. That means we will absolutely drop something $3 million off near the bottom, presumably, right? And so that's the only, you know, give and take on this.
And let's look at those, because you might decide we only want to put $1 million in resiliency and we want to redeploy the 2 million right now. But I would say do that purposefully and allow your public services director to move those projects forward if that's where you want the money.
And once again, I'll say that we want to understand what this is instead of just resiliency, whether it's stormwater or seawalls or whatever it is. And because I feel like we've heard from the community loud and clear that they have a certain priority. So if this speaks to that, it should be prioritized. And, you know, there's ways to get funding. We can get funding. It doesn't have to come from a grant. So it's just a question of whether we want to do it or not.
You have what you need at least, or do you need us to?
Well, I think I have still the 3 million sitting on hold and we're going to move to the next slide.
Yep.
And we'll come back to
Okay.
change that number or leave it the same.
Fair enough.
Okay. So Cam, you're on 3 of 5.
Okay. So next would be projects 31 through 40. So you can see in here, that's more of those resiliency adaptation for the other areas in the rest of the city. Those numbers, again, were still pulled from those water threat studies that were done a few years ago. Fisherman Park, Sunset Park, this one is for the construction of the rehab of those two facilities. They're currently under design right now, and that'll carry through this fiscal year. The wastewater transmission system, that's to install air release valves along our force main for inspection. Community center seawall, that's one we talked about briefly earlier. That's a paired away from the seawall master plan, but was recommended out of that. The reason that this project falls a little bit lower than some of the other ones, such as like Pass a Grill seawall, is just due to the condition, the severity of it. The community center isn't in as bad of shape as the Pass a Grill one is. But it is important to note we do have 2 grants that are tied to that project, one for design and another one for construction.
Collectively, the 863 is 2 different grants, is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And are we time constrained on those? Is that a,
We are. Those grants have already been expired, and we've applied for extensions to get those extended. I think one goes through 2027 now and one through 2028.
Okay.
So as it's situated now, we're in a good position, but if we were to defer this, that would put us back into asking for extensions again.
okay,
And that's a $3 million seawall project?
Yes, sir. That number's going to be finalized as we complete the design. We're underway with the design right now, but that's what we're estimating currently.
Does that span underneath the bridge?
It doesn't go all the way underneath the bridge. No, it's pretty much right up to the northern end of the bridge there at Horan Park, because underneath the bridge would get into like DOT.
DOT would handle underneath the bridge if it comes to it, and then Corey Landings, I think, did it include some seawall? I don't
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so
And an easement in case we wanted to add that at some point, a connection point.
right.
yeah, yeah.
So we can grow into that as Corey Landings grows into a full, hopefully seawall and easements and things like that. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Public Services Building, that's just a continuation of the project that was budgeted this year. We don't anticipate completing that based on where we're at currently. So we're showing reappropriations there. but ultimately within the same budgeted amount. Blind Path South Jetty improvements. This is a new project that was added into our capital program this year. Based on inspection from Pinellas County, they did a structural inspection of all of the structural components on the beach in the county, and this was identified as one area that was deficient and needed to be replaced. So this is in Blind Pass, near where like the Secret Garden is there on that end. There's a very deteriorated like metal seawall where you can see its jagged edges, holes in it. It's probably been, in that condition for quite some time, but we received that report from the county. We reviewed that with them. They had an engineer do some cost estimates, and right now that's looking at about a $3 million project. So you'll see for the fiscal year 27 new, that is for the design funding for that project. We do anticipate applying for grants for that, and we also plan on coordinate with the county to see if there can be any cooperation
Yeah, 'cause
with
that's
that.
a big fishing area, and I think
Mhm.
the manatees hang out there too, don't they?
Probably so, yeah.
Because it's such a pivotal part for boating, we're going to also put this on our list for the TDC.
TDC, yeah, something as well.
So.
Any
uh,
of these-
lot
You
of-
said TDT?
Sorry, TDT, yes.
Okay.
Transit Development.
Tourism Development Tax, I think.
Yes.
First development
you.
tax.
It's late.
Yeah.
Buses,
Tax.
transit.
6 different names for it, right? Yeah.
I was going to ask you the same question, Madam City Manager and Camden, about like the fishing pier rehabs. Item 59, can we tie anything that's tourism related to TDT?
Potentially, I think we should at least try.
Start to earmark things that are, used not exclusively, but largely by our tourists.
Yeah.
We got to squeeze that lemon. So.
Agreed. I mean, there's also another alternative potential for PSTA if they, because there's talk of bringing a ferry service, an intra-island ferry service.
A lot of grants there.
And Mary Pier might be a great spot to contemplate, right? And so maybe there's some work we can get done
I
there.
got ideas.
All right, man, I like it. Okay. Sorry, Camden.
So are we saying Blind Path South Jetty improvements might be TDT?
We're going to try.
Is there a way?
Say we're gonna try.
Okay,
Try.
all right.
And then the Gulf Winds Drive reconstruction project, we have that shown in here. Currently not proposing funding for fiscal year 27, but it is important to note, right now we are tracking for federal appropriations for this project. So if that money did come online, then I would recommend that we prioritize to move that project forward if those appropriations come online. Currently, this was kind of strategized just based on capacity. We can only do so many projects in the city at one time, and with Boca Ciega Drive, that's a big one, and Gulfway, that's another big roadway project that I wouldn't recommend doing all three at one time. So that's why this one was deferred, but that recommendation could change if these appropriations materialize.
Understood. I'll ask maybe city manager or finance director. Imagine we get a grant, and we've got $6 million worth of grants sitting in our coffers. Can we spin up this if we choose to mid-year? Is that a viable option? I mean, it's new money and the new spend, so theoretically they would balance each other off, right?
Yeah, but he's got other projects going on.
We would have, go ahead. You have
Yeah, timing-wise. Logistically, there'll be a concern, but money-wise, really just asking money-wise, not logistically. I understand the logistics.
Yeah, this particular one, it would be is a state appropriation, so those we do receive in a much shorter time period than some of the federal dollars. So yes, you could theoretically, if Camden's team could accomplish it, and if logistically it made sense, we could bring that back.
Okay, go Camden. I like it. I'm Team Camden. All right, thank you.
Any more comments on this, or do you want me to move to next?
I'm good here unless somebody's got a question.
All right, so 40 through 49, so the reclaimed pig port installation, we're proposing to reappropriate the remaining funds for that. The Bella Vista, Don Cesar, and the Paso Grill Way, these are all related to the tie check valve modification projects that were recently approved. Based on where we're at currently this year, that's an 8-month construction project to complete all 3 of those. So we're not anticipating completing that this fiscal year, so we're showing that reappropriation into next year, but not asking for any new funds to be allocated towards those. The bridge rehabilitation, this line does have a typo in your materials. We are proposing to reappropriate the remaining balance of this year's budget. So right now we have $200,000 budgeted. We plan on spending $25,000 this year for design, and then we would spend the remaining $175,000 for repairs.
So I'm sorry, what, you're saying fiscal year 2027 budget, what number are you dropping in there?
It would be $175,000.
Okay.
So it's just the reappropriation.
It's just the reappropriation of,
175 in the new, should be one column over in the reappropriation.
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Reappropriation should show 175 instead of 25. New appropriation should show 0 instead of 175. And then your green column would be the 175. Facility HVAC improvements. This one we boxed out because it wasn't ranked as high as some of the other facility projects, but it is important to note we are underway with the design for a backup generator for City Hall. City Hall it would be intended to be a facility that we use for emergency operations, but part of sizing that generator would be, sizing it for the new HVA system of the building. We wouldn't want to design it to what we currently have. So right now we're kind of tracking those two projects to go together. The Bella Vista Mini Park, so that's an existing project from this fiscal year that's currently under design. Through that design, we had an underwater inspection performed of the pier structure itself. Initially, we anticipated repairing that pier rather than full replacement, but based on that structural inspection, the engineer was recommending a demo. So we are showing that advanced scope into this project, but this is continuing, moving from the design into construction. So out of that mini park, it's the pier itself, also the seawall. The seawall needs to be repaired, and then it'd be brought up to the code elevation, and then stormwater pipe repairs. There's a stormwater outfall that connects from the street that runs through that park property that needs some repairs. So we would anticipate completing all of that scope within this line.
Okay.
And then the right-of-way median improvements. This would be a program that would probably always be on the books, just because we're always going to be updating our medians. Right now, that $185,000 was dedicated specifically for Gulf Boulevard from the section between the Bayway to 75th Avenue, where we had received a grant from the Florida Department of Transportation for $186,000 and change. That grant, we've done the design work for, submitted the plans to FDOT, and they've reviewed it. Right now, that project is on hold because FDOT is doing a storm repair project on Gulfway through those same project limits. So they've asked if we could put our median project on hold, so that way, we don't do our work and then they come in and damage it afterwards. So that's why we're targeting to reappropriate this 185 to next fiscal year so we could follow behind FDOT's project.
Mm-hmm. And you said there's grant money tied to this? I don't see it in the column, but you said there is?
It should be in that, yes, in that grant dollar, it should show 186. I think it's 186 and 400. But either way, the grant amount from DOT is more than what our bid was to redo those medians. So we shouldn't anticipate any city money other than, upfronting the cost and then requesting the reimbursement.
And I know I'd seen, I don't know if everybody saw, but I saw an email from FDOT that they were looking to do some resurfacing and some other work on our road, the Bayway, all the way, frankly, I think all the way up through, ultimately through Madeira Beach and other places like that. Is that this same project, or is this something different?
Different project, but same areas. So FDOT's project is going to be more like pavement, curb, sidewalks, like drainage inlet tops.
Okay.
But with the curb work, with the asphalt work, they didn't, wouldn't recommend that we do our improvements first.
Of course. So theoretically, they do their work, and then we come back in and resurface whatever we're doing here, post that, and all right. And I think that's, and they're both FDOT, and the one where they're doing the work, there's no work on our part. We're just getting out of the way and letting them do their thing, right?
Correct.
We don't have a spend on our side or a grant on our side. They're coming in and doing their own work, and we're just waiting until we do our, right-of-way improvements beyond that.
Yes, sir. That's
thank you.
right. And then this program, could be used in the future if we wanted to do other medians throughout the city as well. Eventually we'll be doing Blind Pass again down the road.
Anytime, I'm gun shy, so anytime I hear grants, and I keep thinking grants that we have to, eventually we drop the project and we lose that grant money, or we decide not to spend it. Tell me anytime you feel like there's a risk of us losing grant money. It feels like this one's new, and it doesn't sound like a...
This one doesn't, I don't think we're at risk with this one currently.
How do you feel those risks? I'd love to hear it.
Yes, sir.
That certainly changes perspective on things.
Two quick questions on this median topic. First off, we were talking about FDOT. Can you clarify, are any of the Gulf Boulevard sidewalks, is FDOT responsible for those sidewalks at all? Or
FDOT is responsible for those sidewalks, yes.
So like they're not ADA compliant, right? So they need to be wider. So why doesn't FDOT fix that? And so why like we're talking about the sidewalks on Gulf Boulevard, and it's my understanding that we charge businesses to fix their own sidewalk, like when they redevelop a property.
My understanding is we have like a corridor plan to do a wide sidewalk. I think we asked for like 10-foot wide, which that's above a typical standard sidewalk.
Could we get all new sidewalks if we just went with whatever FDOT thinks we're supposed to have, which is the wider ADA compliant sidewalks?
If FDOT would replace all the sidewalks, we could ask them.
Well, they're in pretty bad state now, seems like. So you're saying the reason we have substandard sidewalks is because we want them to be 10 feet instead of ADA compliant?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the sidewalks that the city proposes to be replaced as part of like conditional use permits or site plans, that's all tied to that 10-foot wide width of having, more of a multi-path corridor. But we don't regulate or dictate, what FDOT maintains on those sidewalks. That's their responsibility, their right of way.
So even the project that the mayor was discussing, that project is to repair damage, right? So they're going to come through and they're going to see damage, as you said, to inlet top repairs, sidewalk repairs, pavement repairs, driveway repairs, pavement mark and sign repairs, sign replacement. So they're not doing a replenishment, they're kind of doing spot.
That's exactly correct, and that's really the distinction here of what triggers, having to come into full ADA compliance. If they were doing, a full roadway rehabilitation and milling, resurfacing, and doing curbs, then you have to bring all your sidewalks up to standard. But since this is more of just a spot type project, a lot of those existing deficiencies can remain like grandfathered.
Yeah, probably on purpose, to be frank with you.
I want all those mediums replaced, right?
Yes.
And
wishful thinking.
Right, and then medians. So, look, does this apply to neighborhood medians as well? For example, on my street, we have two. It's like a median separates the two lanes.
This could, this program, right-of-way median improvements, would be intended for any landscape median within the city's right-of-way. So that could be an applicable use. Our intent currently, what we're planning for is Blind Pass. Initially, when we applied for this FDOT beautification grant, it was for Gulf Boulevard and Blind Pass. DOT recommended that we defer the Blind Pass improvements because they will be doing a full resurfacing of that roadway in fiscal year 28. So we're kind of tracking with that one. That's really the next full-scale median improvement project that we plan on taking.
Right.
Okay, next, these are projects 51 through 57. And again, here we have the Mary Pier bait shack here boxed out because due to our, our ranking metrics, this didn't score as a very high project, but we know we've received a lot of community input on this in the past several months. So just kind of want to highlight that this, again, is some of the nuances where the scoring and the rankings may not fully work out to your priorities. So this is where really we want your input and direction. Don Cesar boat ramp, that was a project we did not proceed with this year, that we're proposing to just reappropriate that funding. Right-of-way signage, pavement, and markings asset management, that's a new project. That's really to collect a condition rating and assessment of all of our pavement markings, signs, traffic signs, warning signs, and striping, so we can develop a long-term capital improvement plan for that. The 80th Avenue Living Shoreline, that's a reappropriation there for construction. That project is under engineering design this fiscal year. Same with Public Services Operations Yard. That's another project that's currently in engineering design. So we're proposing to reappropriate money for the construction. The City Hall interior improvements, that includes some updates to our second floor finance area, but also our main entrance lobby. And included in those improvements are mainly centered around security and safety, and some of the recommendations we had from our Pinellas County Sheriff's Office during an active shooter training. And then the stormwater drainage manual. This is a design criteria and codes for stormwater drainage within the city. This is something that we run into with site plans, as our drainage code is pretty antiquated. A few years ago, we got underway with developing a stormwater drainage manual, and that project was probably about 75% completed through before it didn't continue. So this would be picking that project back up and taking it to completion.
And that's a requirement for us to get grants, having that manual?
That's not a requirement for us to get grants. It's really the code and the design criteria that goes behind designing stormwater management systems. So as private developments are redeveloping, this is the code and criteria that their engineers would look at when they're designing the stormwater system for their sites. And then the city, would follow that code as well. Currently, the code that we're operating, I believe, was back from 1997. So in that time, there's been a lot of changes in best practices and regulatory codes on how drainage systems are designed.
So I have to ask you, I'm just curious about that one. So that's an update to a manual?
It's a manual that doesn't exist. It'd be an update to a draft that wasn't completed.
Understood. Is there a third party doing the work, or is this work that's being done internally?
It'd be a third party helping staff with the work.
Because I'm sure it's because we don't have the knowledge, or we don't have the time.
Both. Yeah, both. We'd be leaning on experts in that area, and also just capacity. I mean, the way we operate, at least as an engineering team, is we're very lean and small, and we outsource a lot.
Sorry,
that's okay. No, that's all right. On a slightly different topic, but on the same page, on the Mary Pier Bait Shack repair, my feedback on that is that I mean, $100,000 in the grand scope of the budget, you could say it's not very much, but $100,000 is $100,000, and I understand the community's desire to have things be put back exactly like they were before the hurricane. I also have known a lot of business owners who have had concessions with various government agencies, where part of their deal is, we will give you a permit to build whatever kind of building you want to build to run your concession out of, and we'll give you a long lease to make it worthwhile. And then when your lease is up, the building reverts back to the municipality or to the government organization. So I'm not so sure we couldn't craft a lease with somebody who would build their own building on Mary Pier and relieve the city of the cost, or not build a building at all, because if it's over the water, I'm not sure we can, right? That's the answer, yeah. And so this $100,000 to repair what's there, do we even know yet if that's possible, or that's a maybe.
We do not know if that's possible. Based on our efforts so far, we have not received bids for that amount. So this 104,999 is set based on the 50% rule. So
it.
it was appraised at 210,000.
Okay, so this is likely to not happen anyway. And so we could give somebody a concession to park a food truck bait shop next to Mary Pier if we wanted to, or something like that, and give the community the same benefit without trying to unrealistically put something back the way it always was.
We'd have to change some of our legislation though for food trucks and things, right?
I think she's just saying a mobile bait.
Yeah, I mean,
mobile
you know,
bait
not,
truck.
I'm not going to be
other,
ordering shrimp to eat
ideas
from it.
underway right now, just in case
Okay.
of other courses of action. So.
Okay, perfect.
Including a bait type of thing.
Bait barge.
Bait barge.
Bait barge, yeah.
No fireworks.
Okay.
Again, I have heard that again, this intra-island transit thing is looking for docking space. It just feels like a perfect area right down there, and potentially Quarry. And I also know there's a Quarry dock on here as well, and so I'm wondering what we can't PSTA, TDC kind of tie in some of this stuff. That's just I'd like to see if you do work.
Maybe we'll add that to the next.
I also just want to note that if we cannot rebuild the bait shack based on our second attempt to get a bid for repair, we will need at least, I believe, $68,000 to $70,000 to demo it.
Okay.
So we need this money.
So that money needs to be there for
No
something.
matter what right now.
Okay.
So
We can.
105's
can-
not
we
looking
can-
so bad, is it?
Wow.
85 to tear down, 105 to
We shouldn't ban fireworks quite
Yeah.
yet.
105
Thinking.
complete. Get us a new bait shack there versus 85 to tear the existing one down. Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
No bids.
We've been unable to find a bid that is willing to repair it for that price.
Understood.
And for FEMA purposes, it cannot exceed that number.
Understood.
Okay, so we're going to need 80,000 to tear it down. I guess.
I wouldn't want to get behind that statement. But
I think we leave 100 there, frankly, and just
Yeah.
yeah.
reappropriate it later if we need to.
Yep.
Got a Hail Mary coming up.
I guess I would like to ask another question then on the Don Cesar boat ramp replacement. So what we have budgeted there, is that to repair what's there now, or is that some kind of plan
That'd be for the design of a replacement structure.
in the same location?
In the same location.
While you're paused, can I ask, the other WSP thing that talks about Don Cesar flooding and all that stuff, I gotta believe it's gotta contemplate flow across that ramp, just like it's gotta contemplate flows across seawalls or whatever else is being contemplated with this WSP plan. Wouldn't the idea for that come out of this, I guess is what I'm suggesting?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's the main reason why we deferred starting the design on this boat ramp this year, is because we knew, whatever came out of that WSP project could potentially conflict with this. But yes, you're right, that this area is within that WSP study area. The 200,000 design would be based on the feasibility report that Stantec prepared, I think, back in 2023, and was adopted by Commission in 2024. That's where this came from.
Would we act, again, similar to what we talked about earlier on resiliency or whatever it was, the 125 million, would we act on this boat ramp until I would suggest we don't act on it until WSP comes back and tells us a holistic plan for all of this, right? And then theoretically, we might choose to do something with that boat ramp.
That'd be my recommendation.
A grant tied to it, though, for 150.
We have applied for a grant for design.
Right, so...
What's that grant do? What's the deadline on the grant? When do we have to use it or lose it?
That's still undetermined. We haven't received we haven't received like a review yet if it's been approved or accepted.
Oh, it's
yeah.
not even approved.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we might have time to wait for the WSP to come in, decide what the grant is, and...
Correct, yeah. That's
Well, I was just going to make sure everyone understands that at a high tide on a monthly basis, if the wind's blowing from that direction, you get every wave actually does crest the boat ramp. So it's sort of like a pump if the wind's blowing, because normal high tide is not really going to crest the boat ramp. But if you have wind with it, even a little bit, every wave comes over and goes straight down into the neighborhood. So you could almost fix the problem just by raising the road a little bit with a berm, or if need be, you could help solve that problem.
Yeah, the similar recommendations came out of that feasibility study of kind of regrading that area, but because, you got to tie into existing, it's a pretty big stretch that
In the five-way intersection.
area. Mm-hmm.
The ramp in the middle of a five-way intersection.
I mean, I think for me, well, we've said it, the WSP would have to contemplate how that's going to fit within the broader long-term plan. And I'm assuming that might give us some guidance as what we would do with that particular boat ramp in addition to the rest of the $100-something million effort, right?
Correct.
And so I think we would act on it then. So you mentioned you deferred it. Are you suggesting that the 200,000 is not for 2027? Because I see it here.
It would be. So the idea would be, as WSP is getting further into their project, then we'd still have time to initiate this within 27.
Okay, kind of like the same.
It wouldn't kick off October 1st, 2026.
That's why we left the 3 million in the other one earlier.
Is there a plausible outcome that the study comes back and says to close that boat ramp?
Right, it's part of that same study.
It could, but then that gets into, I believe their requirement for 2 boat ramps was really why, this location was kept.
Requirement from the comp plan?
Based on the number of residents that we have.
And we had the community engagement meeting on this, and it was pretty overwhelming to have a boat ramp. But, could you clarify, was that alternative location owned by the city, or is that something we would have to acquire?
The alternative location is owned by the city. So the other location they looked at was Cabrillo, so just, a little bit south there.
Yeah, like not hardly any distance at all, which wouldn't be in the middle of the intersection. So, I had the feeling that people might not mind a relocated boat ramp.
When the feasibility study was done a couple years ago and they looked at both of those locations, my understanding is there was some public workshops done. I know at some point that was brought to commission, and commission ultimately voted on keeping that location. So I think if that were to change, we would need that direction from you.
Yeah. I'm hearing we're going to get some direction out of WSP on what we should do with that, and we should probably allocate some money, but then don't spend it until we learn what WSP tells us. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Okay.
All right, we're good with moving on?
All right, and then the last in this moderate category is your fishing pier rehabilitation project. So in fiscal year 26, we had $825,000 budgeted. That was mainly for First Avenue Fishing Pier and the 7th Avenue Fishing Pier. We estimate to spend about $200,000 of that this year. That's going to be on engineering work and then work at the the 7th Avenue Pier. The First Avenue Fishing Pier is currently in a holding pattern. So we just recently had a meeting with Pinellas County. The rock structure itself of that groin is owned by the county and is part of their beach nourishment project with the Army Corps. And then the walkway on top of it is the city's responsibility. And then, of course, the city has the fishing pier at the end. The rock jetty itself, along with the sidewalk, was damaged from the storm and needs some repairs. But we don't want to do, the city's walkway when that rock jetty itself isn't repaired first. So we've met with the county and asked what their timing would be to repair that rock jetty structure. And right now, it's that they may propose it for fiscal year 28. So I think that's a discussion we need to continue with the county. Probably another project that we put on our TDT list. But that's where that fishing pier currently stands right now. Is we're not proposing to move forward with our repairs until there's a clear plan in place for the rock structure. It's something to note too. This fishing pier was recently rehabbed just a couple years ago, and that project wasn't even 100% completed before Helene and Milton came. So this is a structure that has been hit a few times in recent years.
And so, again, I just ask, if it's on hold, do you think we'll get the substructure done in 2027? Because again, you put money towards it, but we don't even know when the county's going to do their piece. So now I'm wondering, should we be putting the $200,000 into this year's plan, or
it's a big unknown at this point.
So potentially clear it out? I mean, I know other things we've said just in case, but this doesn't feel like a just in case unless you tell me it's likely to come before.
The best information I have right now is 2028 is what the county's planning on, so
Why is,
we'd have to change that if we wanted to do this in 27.
We have leverage to change it. I get that. So if they say that, I'd say clear the money.
Mm-hmm.
But do we have any leverage or any ability to help accelerate that? Have we tried? And I'm trying to figure out whether to leave the money there or not. That's really what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, I think we could probably have further conversations and escalate that. I don't really know what our leverage is at this point.
But we still have the 7th Avenue Pier to contend with, right? So-
Correct, yeah, we would still move forward with that 7th Avenue Pier. Currently, we are doing underwater inspections this month to verify the condition of the pilings. If those come out good, then we'll just repair the deck as is. If we do have to redo the pilings, it'd be a little bit more substantial project, but we are planning for that currently.
Got you. So that'll happen either way. That piece of it, it may be more than what we anticipated. So we'll reallocate mid-year if we need to. Got it. Thank you.
And could we, anything that says fishing pier, try to convince the county to give us TDT money for that? Sure.
I already wrote it down.
Yeah.
Already said
Yeah,
TDT.
anything that
TDT
says
out of my
fishing
grant
pier,
column.
right, yeah.
Everything's tied to
Now, and also, I think every other jetty I've ever seen never has a walkway on it. The fishermen always just wander out and like hazard the rocks and somehow make it out there and fish. So I don't think it would be the worst thing ever is not have the walkway that you're trying to maintain on top of the rocks.
Yes, I agree. I mean, most of my tenure here, this fishing pier has been closed, and I don't think that stopped anybody from doing it.
Still used daily.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next, we'll get into the lowest ranked project. So these are the ones that scored 45 or below, and we had about 25 in this category. First off is the Gulf Boulevard undergrounding. The Vina Del Mar bridge lighting replacements is shown as in project 61. This is the 85,000 is for the lighting materials itself. So we're proposing to show that in fiscal year 27. Currently, right now, we're underway with a structural analysis to verify if the preferred light types can structurally, if the existing bridge is structurally sound to support our preferred lighting type. And then the wastewater asset management plan update, we're proposing a $25,000 reappropriation here. This is just continual asset management planning for all of our wastewater infrastructure, and that is shown as a reappropriation.
And then how many force mains do we have? I'm looking at the wastewater force mains assessment, which has 0 funded for this year, but 100,000 over 7 years. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that would be a plan. I think we would update probably about every 10 years where we just do, an assessment on all of our force mains and plan out the repair replacement schedule. So we're not due, to be in a position to need that study again in the near term.
Okay. And if we are, it's across all of them, feels like $100,000? Is that kind of what you're alluding to? Based on the
Yes.
7-year total?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then wastewater service lateral smoke testing. So this is to people's homes, I think, right?
That's correct.
From our equipment into people's homes and checking whether they're the source of the leak, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's imagine we've got a great wastewater system. We've done all our due diligence. We've done our part. And then everybody's homes are still the same problem, or is that?
Yes, so the laterals, this project would help you identify where your issues are, and then you And typically what you do is you'd send a notice out to that resident, let them know of your findings. But ultimately, as it's structured now, those lateral replacements are the private property owner's responsibility. Down the road, you know, we could potentially create some kind of rebate program or something to incentivize that type of work. But really, the results out of this lateral smoke testing will kind of give you a good idea on the scope of the issue, and then you can kind of strategize, you know, do we need to create some sort of incentive program, or is it okay if people just replace them as they are?
And am I correct in understanding, I'm just reading the 7-year total, $150,000. Are you telling me for $150,000 for every home in the city, we could figure out where people's laterals are?
For the smoke testing, yeah, that was based on historical numbers. We did this just a few years ago. And we're able to accomplish that.
Do you recall, did we find 20% of homes had?
I think we found a lot of issues, and I know we sent notices out to people.
Do we require they solve it? Because ultimately this is the...
I don't think we had a requirement that people had to fix them within, you know, a time frame or anything.
Yeah, but something like this has been done in the last few years, and we notified everybody that had an issue. And less than 50%, more than 50%? I'm trying to get you to roughly tell me how many people.
I don't know. This was all before I came, so I'd have to do a little bit more deep research.
Okay. I just feel like it would be good to know that that's that last mile, as we call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got all this stuff going all the way out to the county or the city of St. Pete, and we got all of our stuff kind of checked and verified, all of our manholes, everything all the way through, and then we lose it as soon as it goes towards somebody's house.
Mm-hmm.
The thousands of homes that we have.
Yeah, that piece has to be addressed too.
It feels like we should know that. Like, I feel like that's a good spend for 150. I know you don't have anything here, and so it feels like a good spend to know that.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not our responsibility to replace it, to at least notify the homeowner.
Notify and be able to strategize. I agree.
Of all the things that I've heard, this feels like maybe we might want to consider spending the 150 when there's nothing budgeted.
Well, over here it says every 5 years, right? And so if we've done it in the last 3, we could probably put it off a couple. You know, if the standard is 5 years, if it's actually been 7, maybe it's something we should do. You know.
Mm-hmm. And that current 2029 is based on that, I think.
So that's when the next one you're suggesting should happen is in 2029. Okay. Which would tell me then that we should have the results of the last one. Whether you have them in front of you, you should be able to get the results of the last one to understand. That's fair enough. So it's a few years old, but it's comprehensive of the entire city.
And makes sense also to put off doing that again for a couple of years, because with all the redevelopment that's happening in the neighborhoods, there's a whole bunch of laterals that are getting replaced right now as people are building new houses or having their houses lifted. And so there, you know, whatever problems exist today, 2 years from now, there's going to be a lot fewer of them. So even if we don't do anything.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I'm comforted that I know I can fall back on a few years old data and still get what I need. You've got it somewhere, just you don't have it in your head right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And then playground equipment, I thought it was a fairly large number, and then I looked, there's like 6 or 7 parks in there, all with theoretically new equipment. I realize that's, I don't know.
29, 30, and 31, 32
Yep.
fiscal years.
Gotcha.
Fiscal years, yeah,
Planned,
exactly.
but not yet coming in. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And we, it's been a couple years, but we do plan on conducting a full like playground assessment of all of our structures in July of this year.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
And on playgrounds then, I guess if there is rusty metal or sharp edges on the kids' playground equipment.
See Click Fix.
Yeah.
That's See Click Fix?
That's the way that's going to work, right?
See Click Fix, I would note, you know, if depending on the cost, you know, we may have to take that equipment and just close off the area and secure it. You know, a full repair may not be feasible, which is why we have this project.
I think you did that with the Lido one. I think I drove by it and saw some fencing around that particular playground.
Right, and it's gone now though, so it seems like just a little bit of paint fixes things sometimes. I mean, like, I'm not sure, there were broken bars and such.
See Click Causey?
Click Causey.
I'm gonna start a new website.
Got it.
The next one is shuffleboard.
Yeah, so shuffleboard, clubhouse replacement, this one was boxed, similar reasoning for Mary Pier. It's just, it's a community project that we've received a lot of interest in over this past year, but score-wise, it didn't rank the highest. And then the LPR system for the parking enforcement. I'll let our city manager kind of expound on that a little further. But really, this is an essential service to be able to make our parking enforcement more efficient, so we can help realize some of these revenues that we'd like.
So on our larger blown up handouts here, we have the license plate reader system in 2 spots, and then we have a citywide camera in security, and then we have the parking technology. So it looks like the Lipper system is...
It's a duplicate.
The LPR system lines are duplicates, and then the citywide camera and security system is separate item from this. That's more geared towards cameras for our critical facilities.
So that's not the Flock system?
No, so it's been changed as to security. We're trying to address some issues that came out of the, again, the Pinellas County Sheriff did a threat assessment.
Yep.
So that's the key, the badges, automation of all of that. There are a few cameras sprinkled in there, but they're only on major city facilities where there's quite a bit of movement of people.
Are we referring to 76? Item
That's 76.
So it's not really citywide, it's city assets?
Just city assets.
City
That's why we
assets,
took
right.
that off, because it made it sound like we were
Yeah, I think we should adjust that name.
putting in surveillance cameras around the city. We're not.
I thought it was the Flock.
For the record.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we should adjust that name, please,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the dashboard.
Did we skip over Horan Park?
71, yes, that was a project from prior CIPs, so we're just reflecting it here, but that was, I understand there's some concepts that were done in years past for some docks at the, at Horan Park, and I think I was on the premise of like some transient type docks,
So we
similar
can-
to what we're looking at Quarry Landings.
Are we going to keep this or move that in or out?
It shows not keeping it on your PowerPoint, Camden, but keeping it on this more detailed spreadsheet.
Oh, yes. Ooh, man.
know what
Well, I would like to know if we could make it a revenue-producing thing, because most cities on the water have some type of listing on DOCLA.
We can take
where-
that off.
Okay.
So 500, 550 is not in
On this
2027?
Not proposed for 27.
No.
It's
Not
not.
proposed.
It's not.
Okay. Still want to PSTA, TDT that thing.
Yeah. that's
Okay,
it.
so
Back to the shuffleboard court clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one that, I think it is truly awful for the community that we lost that cool old building and that facility is not the same as it's always been. But $170,000 seems like a lot to spend for. Didn't we get money for that? Some sort of money for
Insurance?
insurance?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
we got something.
Some, not this full 170, but there was some.
it's not listed on here, so
Yeah, I think we need
we need to know that too.
Maybe put up a shed with a door that locks that
I'm thinking.
stuff can be stored
Well,
in.
a
but-
lot of people wanted to keep it and didn't do any donations or didn't do any.
Yep.
Save our shuffleboard court.
But
GoFundMe.
we said it earlier in the earlier session, but
Okay,
we
so
put grant money here, but I think any kind of anticipated FEMA insurance, I think we said that, right?
Well, I believe the insurance was around 84,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 84K?
And there are potential donors that may be coming forward, so.
I mean, I suggested to him to go do a GoFundMe for it because they have a lot of shuffleboard folks in various areas that might give $5 here, $5 there. It adds up.
So, well, neither beginner and with shuffleboard club, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I see on your version that you've removed foot shower and drainage improvements on your version. All that's left really is 74 and 76, so I'm just double checking. You've got some on our spreadsheet.
74, 76, and yes, yep,
And shuffleboard, right?
shuffleboard.
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Which LPR are we taking out? Any?
It looks
I think
most like
it
the
should
bottom
only
one.
be one $300,000 thing,
I
not
took the
two.
top one off because it looks most like the bottom.
Sorry, on the parking, that was because we were looking at changing the names from the fiscal year 26. We did have some funding set aside in 26 for some parking enhancement. So those are just duplicative of each other. And it's the same thing with the security system as well.
Sorry, what are you saying? That 77 is a duplicate of something else?
Yeah, parking enforcement? Yes.
I'm sorry, I see. Oh, yes. LPR system and
77?
No,
There's,
you
bringing
tried
it
to
into
move the
72,
parking.
not.
Yeah.
Parking enhancements. Check.
77 is separate and not part of 74s, right?
Parking, there was parking technology enhancements within the fiscal year 26 budget. What we're saying now is that we're looking to have 300,000 through the LPR system in fiscal year 27.
so there should just be one LPR system.
Correct.
Obsoletes row 77.
Yes, there should just be one.
It's just a reappropriation from one name to a new name, same concept. And I just want to ask, I know the foot, shower, and drainage improvements were discussed, but I'm showing it on this spreadsheet Camden is funded, and not on the PowerPoint. And I know those are highly used, so I just want to make sure you don't need that money.
We were proposing that foot shower for 2031.
Well, this was one doesn't exist, it'd be a brand new one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, maintenance of existing would fall under operations.
Okay.
Got it.
So these are additional foot showers at PAG and Upham.
And that
So
would be
New ones. These are new.
They've been removed.
2031.
And we're not funding as we speak.
Okay,
I think that's good.
okay.
Because
So that
30,000
comes
is
in.
30,000.
It's true. 50.
50 grand.
Oh, 50,000.
Or 50.
All right, I've already scratched it out, that's why I couldn't read the number.
Okay, got that. And we took out the docks. And the shuffle, what are we doing with the shuffleboard?
Open air pavilion concept is what's been proposed. We're still waiting on the designs, which closed.
The bids closed this week. We received 4 of them, and 2 fit within that 170 budget. So we'll be evaluating those and ranking them.
They're without a restroom.
I believe with. I think that was looking at with the bathroom alternate.
Good. We need a restroom. All right. Good to hear.
Dune walkover replacements. It feels like we've actually spent 483 out of a total of 533, so we got about 50 grand left. Is it done and we finished under budget, or you still need another 50 somewhere and you're just saying not this year?
We finished and we're under budget. We're saying just not this year, but the idea would be, if we were in a better, financial place, this would be something where you could carry a line item, and then anytime a walkover is damaged, you already have the funding in place to replace it, rather than waiting a whole budget cycle. But we're not proposing any funding for this project next year.
They're functional, serviceable, open, all that fun stuff, and we just don't need any more this year. We'll
Correct.
talk about some in the future.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Nothing for me?
Last.
Last slide. Did we really get there? Wow.
Is the 300 for 81 supposed to be in the green column too? Did it miss it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So that's gonna
Sorry.
up that amount.
81.
81.
Missed the green
The
column.
300 should be in FY the green column.
Yep.
For 81, 300 should be there. Okay, and it's not on either one of these, is what I'm
So
hearing.
should, did you remove fire station painting, Camden, or you wanted it there?
I think that was moved to a future year.
Future year?
For
Yeah,
fire
not until
station paintings
28.
So our spreadsheet's a bit old, so now I gotta look up here and figure out what's still in. So,
For the permitting process redesign and optimization, can we use building department funds for that?
It is.
It is.
And just for, oh, actually, that should say building fund on that one.
Which one?
What Commissioner Marriott just
Permitting
pointed out
process,
on
81.
81, that's building fund.
So it should be building fund, not capital.
Yes.
And I would anticipate, are going to have enough money in the building fund to fund that.
We do.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
So that comes off of this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to reconcile what I'm hearing. So 81 should have 300,000 in the green
In the green column.
and comes from the building fund alternatively, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then New AV Solution City Hall in front of me, it says it's scratched out, but on my printed copy, it says 190,000 to be spent this year, and you're saying no. That's what I'm saying. What I'm looking at on the screen is more accurate than what I've got in my hand. Is that what you're telling me?
Hang on. What number is that?
79?
79. Yeah, we don't need it right now, we do not need it reappropriated because the plan is to have it done.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
If it doesn't get completed, this will change
got it.
as we track to the final budget adoption.
Okay.
And I think that's a good call out that the city manager made. Each one of these 26 estimated actuals, 26 reappropriations, and any 26, that 27 reappropriation plus new, that is going to continue to shift. As soon as we hit print on these documents, it shifts because Camden and his team and the city, as we're progressing through these contracts, they're continuing to do the work. So since we're in June and the budget is for October, we're doing our best estimate that we have today. But as you know, I mean, these projects are just going to continuously shift. So I just wanted to, well, I had that moment to share that.
Gotcha.
All right, so I think that so the only outstanding item is the $3 million for project. Let me find the number.
27?
27, and whether you want us to hold it in the capital fund under the project number or move it somewhere else.
As this is a top priority issue for District 3, I gotta speak up and say, whatever it takes to get progress done on the top issue in the district might be advisable from my standpoint.
Okay with that? I mean, so keep it budgeted. I'm not sure what fund you're alluding to, but keep the $3 million in is what I think we agreed to earlier.
Allocated to the project.
And then if we had to reallocate it later, we could. And
Okay.
now the next beautiful question will be when you add all this up and tell me, what our spend is projected to be.
We will when we bring you the baked budget.
Understood. Next time.
It looks like it's still pretty close to what we did. It's on here, isn't it?
Yes.
Except we added 300,000.
Okay, let's move on
600.
to our next decision point this evening.
I thought we were done.
Just for my records, as I'm updating, was that a hold on the Don Cesar?
It was
Or
to keep it allocated to that project.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this next section, we're going to just take you through just a little bit more information, and hopefully this graphic gives a good depiction of how the FEMA disaster funding moves from a disaster event into a final reimbursement project closeout. It's essentially a step-by-step roadmap of what happens after a hurricane or emergency until the city ends up getting reimbursed for until everything is finalized. To date, we've received funding for our category A and B, which is debris removal and debris monitoring. So that prior roadmap is illustrative of how many steps it takes to get all of those projects obligated, or why they sit in that outstanding category. So obligated means that they have approved the project for us and that we are able to receive that funding. So this is a summary. As you can see, we have 86 total projects. This is broken out by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And you can see how much we have obligated versus outstanding. In the next rendition of this workshop, we can include in what that FEMA funding and what projects that ties to. It's not all inclusive of our capital projects list, as some of it is either contents, damages, or things of that nature that wouldn't materialize into a full capital improvement project. But any questions on that as before I progress to the next? Okay. So here we just wanted to call out that the Finance Budget Review Committee did ask for the full ranked project list for review and not grouped by funding bucket. So that's why we changed the presentation and presented it to you in that manner. The rest of that we will continue to track as we build out our budget, but wanted to include this as part of the record on some of the items that they recommended for us. Okay, next we're moving into our revenue strategy direction. And so really all we're looking for here, based on the Finance Budget Review Committee, is either a thumbs up to continue to investigate the areas that we have in our green boxes, to have a lower priority of the yellow, and then to not pursue the items that are listed in red.
I feel bad. I'm asking you to go back one slide for me, and I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just want to understand. So this is Financial Budget Review Committee met, and these are the kind of output of their discussion?
Yes.
Is there a detail? I'm reading, I see, our Madam Cheney's name in here. Resurface account for homes under reconstruction, 58th Avenue, DRMO. I don't understand what all that means. What is that saying, essentially?
I can send over just the full memo of the notes that we have from that meeting. On the DRMO, Colonel Greger, who's a committee member, recommended that we meet and look to see if we can get surplus excess vehicles from the federal government. And so that was an idea of his. And so that's an action item for us to meet with the city manager. And then he also said to just continue to escalate with our legislature body, Cheney, to make sure that we're able to secure as much funding there as possible.
Love it. Okay, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem. Okay, so again, we're just looking for kind of a simple thumbs up or thumbs down if we have your support to continue to investigate these items further and to not pursue the items in red.
Well, we've discussed the idea that peers can be TDT, so bed tax utilization seems like something we're talking about using. I think we didn't think that could apply to us, but now we do.
It's very narrow to capital projects, so we could title this and move it to green, say bed tax utilization, pursue capital tourist-based projects.
Capital projects, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move that over to green.
I did speak with our county commissioner. I had a pretty extensive conversation with our county commissioner and a couple of very brief conversations with a couple of the other county commissioners. And with the property tax issue that's going to be on the ballot in November, their advice was probably to put the CRA on the back burner until after the election and see what happens. Their feedback was that likely there wouldn't be any CRAs being approved or continued or in any of those options if that property tax measure passes. So there's probably no need to spend any time on that one in the near term.
Is it in a place where you could put it aside and pick it up?
Yeah, so where we're at was we completed the finding of necessity, then the county staff replies, and then we reply back, and after that final city reply, then we can request to schedule a hearing in front of the county commission. We're going to pause that until after the ballot measure.
Mm-hmm.
But we have everything in place. There's no time-bound limit on requesting that consideration in front of the county commission, so we will wait till we get through the ballot measure process, as the impacts to the county will be very intense. So we wanted to give them some professional space.
Understood. I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
So to get this right, we're looking at an assessment for fire and a resiliency fee. Might as well call that an assessment as well. Because that would be citywide, correct?
We would have to, and the fire assessment fee, yes, that would, that's the one that requires a study and nexus and value. The resiliency assessment is one that we would just continue further researching. On any one of these, we would be bringing those back to the commission for approval and a full presentation on what we've continued to pursue.
But that would be every property.
A resiliency
fee.
No, it's fire assessment, I think is what she.
Fire assessment would be every property. The resiliency fee, we just don't have enough information right now. I couldn't answer that right now to say how that could be modeled. It could be something that you could put on a utility bill. It could be an assessment. There's a couple different ways you could go about that one.
What would help me with each of these is to understand what the impact is per, say, $100,000 home or something like that, right? I get that each home's going to, I assume it's some kind of millage or something that would
Yeah.
affect, but I'd love to know on a $100,000 home, this is what it means if we're going to collect fire assessment of $2 million to $3 million. This is the impact per home of that. Is that a reasonable request?
Fire assessments
I'm gonna
aren't done
call
by the
the-
value of
so-
the home, it's just how many homes you have.
Okay.
But
So
there
you'd be
are-
able-
there
so
are-
you'd be able to divide it
there
by
are-
how many homes I have, and you'd be able to tell me then.
They're sample communities that we can, I mean, they're the ranges we've seen, and maybe Adam can correct me, but like anywhere from $300 to $500 per year.
Good evening again, yes. So it really depends on that study that you have to do, because you basically have to make, like Devin mentioned, a nexus between what you pay out in fire protection based on the number of residential units and then your commercial properties. So like the city manager said, there are some sample communities you can go online and look at. Like if you were to look at like Fort Lauderdale, they have a fire assessment fee. I think like for a residential home, it's somewhere in like maybe that $300 a year mark, somewhere like that. Obviously, commercial properties pay significantly more because it's based on square footage. But they also, when they do that study, they look at, your percentage of call volumes, commercial versus residential. So there's a very extensive process to ensure that there's, fairness in the rates that you're charging. I'll tell you, in Pinellas County, Dunedin is going through the process right now. Safety Harbor is considering it, and in fact, they have a presentation to their commission, I want to say next week, that I have the link to that I'd be happy to share with you all, and is basically an informative presentation on this is what a fire assessment fee is, this is the process to do it, this is what you're looking at as a community, and to see if they want to progress forward with it. So I do plan on attending it in person, but like I said, I do have the link, so it might be beneficial to share that out with y'all.
I'm hearing there's some I guess some things that we can't just, calculate, divide this by that, and we get that. I hear that, right? But as much as we can project what we think this means per household, like $100, $200 per household, I think that's a fairly easier squeeze than $4,000 per household. And I have no idea looking at it. That's what I'm saying. I get it. I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying I have no idea looking at it what we mean when we say we want to pursue this. And so I'd like just
Yeah, so a couple points I'll make is, again, based on what I've seen across the country with these, you're in the hundreds of dollars a range, not the thousands of dollars a range for a residential unit. To give you an exact number would be a little challenging, but I will tell you this as well, is this is something that would have to go to a referendum for the community to vote on. So, it's not something that you all would have to decide as far as to implement it. You would just have to decide to pursue it, and then it would have to go to a referendum, and your citizens would have to vote on.
Do all of these fall in that same category?
I don't know enough about the resiliency assessment.
Parking, no.
Parking, no. Enterprise
fee,
fund,
no.
no. Grants,
And-
obviously.
And I think the key is if you tell us you're interested in a fire assessment, we need to hire an expert, which is going to run you about $85,000 for a study. So I need you to tell me, do you really want me to pursue this? Because I need to put $85,000 in the budget. We cannot do this study in-house.
And it's a
Kansas City
several-year
did one,
process.
And they hired the study for about that. They used Accenture. They paid, last year, each residence paid $106, and then it's 25 cents per square foot for commercial properties. And was able to raise about $350,000.
offset the city's costs of fire services and fire
Right.
EMS, or just fire?
It cannot be for EMS, it's just fire. So we already get our EMS paid for by Pinellas County. Well, right now, we still get our EMS paid for by Pinellas County. But fire assessment fee is actually defined. It can only go to fire protection, so it would just be a portion of your.
And so this would free up funds that we normally use to pay for fire.
Yes, sir.
If we did this. So say it was $300 a year for a resident. I'm not sure that the average resident feels like they need $300 a year for their residents. But if it were so that we could free up funds from, that would need to go to something they do need, then it makes sense. But then maybe it should just be, they should just pay right into that enterprise fund instead of indirectly through the fire fund. I mean, it makes sense to me to actually tell people that you should be paying $300 for fire, and they should believe that.
So one of the things with the assessments is they have to be tied to property, so property interest. So, you might charge a library fee, but that wouldn't be an assessment. That would be on your trim notice.
Well, it says fire assessment fee, so I'm just trying to decide, does a how much does a residential property think they should be paying for fire? I don't know.
Again, these are all fair questions. It's like I mentioned, it is a relatively long process that includes community. Typically they involve community forums where you listen to the residents. You feel if this is going to be successful. I'll tell you, 2 Central Florida communities did this somewhat recently. One of the referendums passed, one of them failed. So certainly there's successes across the state, and there's not so much across the state. So it really is dependent on your community, but to your point, that's exactly what it would be doing. It would be, utilizing those funds to fund your fire department, so you can reallocate those funds somewhere else to maybe pay for some of these, ongoing capital projects that we're talking about tonight.
And Adam or maybe the city manager can answer this either. I mean, part of the idea of the fire assessment fee would be that based on a study that an expert would do that would link what you're paying to the services required and that you're getting, that there's at least some possibility that if we do a study and find out that actually the 6 big hotels in the hotel district are getting 85% of the fire services, that then we could tie that to an assessment that is somehow structured so that the people who are using more of the services pay more, correct?
That's exactly
And so that's the difference between just saying, well, we're going to collect $3 million a year, we're going to divide it amongst the people. Because if we're going to do that, we're just going to raise our millage rate, right? Like, why are we doing this instead of raising the millage rate? Yeah. Why we're doing this is so that we can apportion out a higher cost to the people who are using the service.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is likely not residents in our particular case, but we won't know that unless we do a study and can tie it all together to make it legal for the state to allow us to impose this assessment.
It definitely changes your model to more of a pay for services or for the potential of services.
Yep.
I'm for it.
Put that 85
Yes?
budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd say
thank
budget
you.
that 85
Yeah.
and let's see where that goes.
Yep.
Yes, agreed on that. This is the fire assessment fee that we're done with, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, and so
We can talk about each one?
resiliency fee, well, we already did parking study.
Okay.
Resilience fee,
Meaning parking studies behind us, and we don't need to worry about whatever this says on the screen?
the parking study's done.
Okay.
Now we're just going to optimize, right?
We're in optimization phase.
Right.
Okay.
Resiliency fee, we've done nothing with. We would need to do some sort of study. It would not be $85,000, but it would be some between 5 and 10 probably to pay someone like Ralph Tellis to do some sort of analysis. So
5 to 10,000? To tell us, I'm sorry, I get what resilience. WPS telling us how to make Boca, Don Cesar and others resilient was 800,000, and so you're telling me somebody can look at our city and tell us how to be more resilient for 5
No, 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 they're gonna tell you what kind of fee you could assess based on a metric.
Like what other cities
Yeah,
charge
they would
for
be
the
looking
same
at other
thing?
cities, they would look at our budget, they would look at our needs, they would make a nexus to it. It would be something that would be typically tacked on to probably your stormwater
And the
fee.
reason that we didn't, like what we said earlier was, well, we wouldn't do it as an enterprise adjustment on fire, because we'd find that we could apportion it, you know, to by use or something like that, rather than by
Right.
home. Is this an equivalent kind of conversation, or is this is by home, isn't it?
No.
By ERU, I see.
By
it.
ERU.
ERU, right, and ERU, so an equivalent residential unit for a house is 1.
Right, for a business.
For a business, it's more. So, you know, my 6,000 square foot business, I forget what the ERUs are. It's 2.7 or 3.5, you know, whatever it is. It's some number of ERUs. So, so it's another way of trying to apportion things out in what the state considers a fair manner, so that they allow us to do it.
And in this case, if we go with this, we're talking about every home will pay $7 extra.
Right.
Fair enough, good. So we're spending more than that talking about it, so okay, thank you.
Enterprise funds are all underway, so we're going to be bringing those fee studies, they'll be rolling out July and August.
Okay.
So we don't need any action there, and then grants, of course, are in play and continue to be. Lower priority, but it's still tracking to you. Resident services fees are coming to you in early July. So this is the concept of pay for childcare, art classes, pool access, gym access. That's all coming.
Bifurcated by, I think I heard or saw resident, non-resident.
We're going to be showing you resident versus non-resident with some non-resident scenarios based on our feedback from Finance Committee.
Understood. And
Okay.
do we have usage study, like, do we know that as well? Like, same kind of conversation we might have had with PSTA earlier, is we know what percentage of people using our
We
pool
do.
are residents versus non. Okay,
Correct.
cool. Thanks.
Parking-based street repair assessment, this was the University of Florida concept of somehow assessing commercial properties for their parking spaces and using that income to pay for, the nexus is back to street repairs, because they disproportionately use the streets over residents because of the number of cars that are driving to the commercial properties. That's the concept. So Finance Committee thought it was interesting. They didn't say absolutely no, so we're here to ask you. It will take some investment in researching that, and we would have to do a study at some point. I would actually recommend that we hold on this one until fiscal year '28, because we have so much going on. I'm not sure we would have the bandwidth to do. I think it's overload. So again, while it's in the lower priority, we could phase and regroup in '28 to discuss
This
that.
is all about where should staff spend their time, not about what we ultimately do. It's about where should staff spend their time.
Correct. And then the CRA, we just told you, we're on hold until November. Public-private partnerships, they were very interested, but again, deal specific. Those are similar situations that when they come up, are you generally supportive of them? We would explore them as we get approached. But again, you know, we might get property donations. We may get donations for projects, or someone would want to build a project and partner with us. Looking if you have general support for us to explore those conversations.
It would be case by case, it sounds like.
Definitely case by case. Philanthropy, foundation, roundup, and naming. This is all unpredictable, but generally supportive if we had interest from the community to lean in on those concepts. And so we are starting.
Bank City Hall. Right? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, like in your neighborhood, Mayor Tate, there's people who want to chip in for a sale over the kids' equipment. And they were talking about redoing the dock and the mini park, but I think it ended up costing a lot more than they thought. So, but it's possible.
I was just going to add that the town of Bel Air actually has their own community foundation that's resident run, and so they look at offsetting different types of projects like what you're speaking to through a community foundation. So
It's interesting, because if there were appetite, I hear some of it, as different projects, and say, well, I might be willing to chip in a little bit on that. Is there like a, I don't know what we call it, philanthropy? I know we don't have a board of such, but would we contemplate a board where people that might have philanthropic natures would find opportunities to search?
that's what they have in Bel Air, and so you do have a board, and they host events, and they fundraise, and in some cases they have membership. If you want to be a member of the Bel Air Community Foundation, you can see it on their website and everything that they're doing with it. So it's pretty relatively low lift. It's not something we would manage inside. There would be a board that manages it, sort of like the Friends of the Library.
Thank you.
That's a great idea.
And then bonds and capital tools. Devin, you can talk a little bit about that, maybe some background on what we've already done.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as bonding or capital tools, you can bond against your ad valorem, which would require a referendum of the voters. So you would, if you picked a specific project or projects, you could do a ad valorem bond. The other option is that you could say, for example, if you wanted to bond against your parking revenue, that doesn't require a referendum, that just requires action by you all. And so there's different opportunities there where when you're looking at some of those larger projects, that's typically where you would recommend a bond issuance there. Bonds are like fire assessments, and they do have to have community benefit for the people that are paying for them. And so if that's an area that you wanted us to flesh out further and provide just more details, this is really all just like you mentioned, Mayor. What details do you need from us, and should we continue looking at these different opportunities?
A question for you, please. I'm thinking about, this whole resiliency, 120 million something, right? I don't imagine there's any of these things on the left that are ever going to get us there. So, I assume we're talking. What's the distinction between a bond and a P3? I just don't know what a P3 is. What is that?
A public-private partnership is where you, in a lot of cases, it's more of your enhancement. So if we said we wanted to run our own indoor pickleball court, for example, it was a city asset, but we have somebody else run that asset for you, as an example. In some cases, they have been successful in some of the larger communities. I want to say, I believe it was Fort Lauderdale, where they did get a public-private partnership for someone to come in, construct some of their pumps, but it remained a city asset. And so you have some benefits when you're utilizing some of those public-private partnerships because they're not going through the government bidding process that we go through. So they have a little bit more flexibility with some of their processes and who they can hire, how it operates. And they sometimes will set up that initial funding in the beginning, and then we end up taking over the asset. So there's a lot of different examples out there. Usually, if there's a revenue generator, those are going to be the ones that people kind of really glean onto. And so we could provide some more examples there. But again, our past presentation gave you as far as we have researched these to date. What this is asking is where should we continue researching and continue bringing you back information on.
Understood.
Devin, is there any concern or conversation around if the ballot measure passes in November, that changing the bond landscape in Florida for municipal bonds at all, or is that just a big unknown?
There is some. If you listen to either the Senate or the House, that question did come up because it could impact cities' bond ratings. And so there is definitely a little bit of some information floating around out there, but I don't believe they've really given too much information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Devin, I would like to discuss this bond thing for a second or two. So it seems like to me that when cities reach the end of service life on major infrastructure, that bonds are almost always the answer. Is that sort of true? Because where else are we going to come up with, like, I added up all the wastewater projects And the total cost over 7 years was 39 million roughly. And yeah, a bond would be a way to get that money up front and spread it out over a longer period of time. And which makes sense because the wastewater project's going to last for 30 years. And now you would basically be allowing people who are going to use it for the next 30 years to pay for it. But I guess it's a general tool for when you have a major expense. If we were to take the stormwater projects and add them up with all of that resiliency stuff, it comes out to 125 million. And then if you add those together, that's 164 million over the 7-year period. But if, so you would wonder how much would it cost us to do a $160 million bond? And to me, I think it comes out to about 10 million a year in revenue that you need. So if you were looking at this column that's under the green header, you'd be looking at revenue. And that does add up to about 11 million, for example. Not that we would take all of that and put it into fixing capital projects necessarily, but just to give you a feel for what we're talking about here, you would take that you would take revenue and use it to have a bond in order to distribute that cost out over a longer period of time, which makes sense because the service life of that asset does last for the 30 years. Is there anything that I'm thinking about that the wrong way?
I think just the biggest key, and we do have very specific bond counsel that we work with. We don't work with our in-house attorneys because it's so strict and specific in Florida. We also have a financial advisor who helps us work through these because they are so very specific. I think the biggest key is that you have to be able to tie that community benefit for those types of bonds. So if this was something that the commission wanted us to flesh out further, we could certainly look at some of those projects, work with our financial advisor, and work with our bond counsel, and bring you back some proposals that would better help align some of those questions for you.
I just don't see how we're going to do everything without one, to tell you the truth. But could our city manager speak to this possibly? Like, how should we be thinking about bonds? I'm not sure why it should be listed under a lower priority, for example, because it seems like a necessary tool.
Yeah, so this, again, was the finance budget review recommendation. So that is what it is. That's how they had prioritized it. I will say that the amount of capital investment, whether it be new or existing, either side of that will require most likely bonding against either existing revenue or new revenue. We're not going to get this done without that, because for the bonding, for the public so they can understand it, it's essentially you get the loan up front to remodel your kitchen, and then you pay it off over a period of time that you've agreed to with the bank. It's similar math and investment as you're managing your own home. So yes, we do think that is the most likely path for us to do these major investments and replacement and repairs. I do think we would need to engage. So I guess the real ask tonight is there's a cost associated with working with bond counsel and financial advisors. And so we would want to put a placeholder in the finance department budget if that's something you want to, then they can do all of these numbers and come give a presentation on very specific projects, do the nexus to who's getting the benefit for us and that evaluation, and make a recommendation on what it would take to continue in that path.
Yeah, I would be in favor of pursuing options for a general obligation, the GO funds for very specific projects, stormwater, water and wastewater to be exact. I agree with my District 3 Commissioner that all roads are leading to, we need to find solutions and not just talk about it. I also do like the parking revenue being used as a bond. That's something that we can project and know what we're going to get, knowing, of course, that even with our recommendations, the GO bond would have to go to referendum. So ultimately, the public would decide if they agree that this is as important to them as it is to us. So.
Do we, again, I keep thinking of this WSP project that, at least for a small portion of our city, helps us understand the cost of doing things like this, right? I think that would refine this number. I looked right over at that 125 million. I think I saw it. I'm guessing the WSP project would help us refine that number and get a better sense. I don't feel like we would act on anything personally until mid next year, when we have an understanding of at least what that project told us it would take to do. And then we'd be able to project out these three other projects that were very similar that have nothing tied to them yet, right? And so we're asking to go research what it would take to do it. We don't even know what dollar amount we need, and we don't even have a rough idea what dollar amount we need. And I think if we pursue this, I don't think it's now. I think it's put on hold, and then as we get the results of the WSP study and we decide that we must go down this path, right, and we exhaust other avenues, then I think we need to have this conversation. But I think we'd be premature right now, personally.
I agree. I think it's very likely that bonds will be a tool that we will need to utilize going forward. But I wonder about the wisdom of just throwing all the time at everything all at once. And so, I think with some of the fire assessment fee, the optimizing the parking, investigating a resiliency fee, getting our enterprise funds self-sustaining, I think going down that road will get us to a much better idea of what we need to do. And then I think the bond conversation will be something that we'll be able to act upon more when after we have that information. Where I think if we have the bond conversation too soon, it will be hard to know what the amounts need to be and what the numbers look like.
Yeah, I do agree that with everything you've said, but it should be like the number one lower priority thing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we're working
the
down
top of the low priority or the bottom of the high priority. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm hearing no funding in 27.
Well, one thing I wanted you to discuss is what is the lag time from the time we decide we want a bond to when we would actually have the funds to start a capital project? Say WSP says in February, this is what you should do.
It depends a little bit whether you're going to use a fee, like a stormwater fee or fire fee, or whether you're going to use an ad valorem, which would be a millage. Either way, your people are going to pay either based on equivalent ratio, or they're going to pay on a millage rate. So they're going to go up from a few $100s to $1,000. We do the bonds for Captiva for the beach renourishment. The first one's always the hardest because you might have to do a bond validation hearing, which means going to court till the court blesses your bond. Sometimes people are doing loans that are similar to bonds. We go through most of the same practices, but you also have to time it with the elections. So if you're going to do a general obligation bond, you have to have an election, and that means you got to get on the ballot, and the supervisor has certain dates. You have to get the question to them in English and Spanish. You guys got to vote on it first. So it can take maybe 9 months for your first one.
So you're saying if we were to say we get WSP in February and we say they say we need 40 million over the next 7 years, then we could have a bonding.
We go to a bond consultant to help you figure out which banks to go to and write your scope. And you get bond counsel, which is a separate Red Book counsel because they have to sign the bond, and the city attorney also has to review and sign the bond separately. So you have assurances for people that are buying these bonds. And then you have to go to the bond validation hearing, and you have to get on the ballot. So once you start it, then we'll try to accelerate it as fast as we can once you decide that's what you want to do.
Well, I just wouldn't want to end up in February and not have anything in the budget in order to get money to start in October.
It might be too soon to do this next fiscal year, but you could use it to plan for the next one, probably.
Well, yeah, let's just think ahead.
Yeah, thinking to the following fiscal year. I mean,
Well,
we're in the budget process right now for this next fiscal year. It's probably too late to do it now, but for the following year, we can do something.
Right, we're talking about having some design information in February 27. So they would be saying, you should spend this money. So when would we be able to have money to spend is what I'm asking. So
If you know how much you need to
need to
spend,
do
you go immediately and get the bond consultants, and then they can sit down and they can put the timetable.
But we have to
and all
have the
steps and
money
all
to
that
pay
through
the
to you.
bond consultants, right? That has to be budgeted.
You pay them up front. You pay bond counsel, comes out of the proceeds of the bond.
Well, we're going to have a design information sometime next year, and at that point, we're going to know how much money we need to spend.
Mhm.
So I would feel like we need to plan ahead for that. At least have something budgeted so we can then move forward with getting money for the following year instead of having multiple extra years in the process.
And it's different if it's fees versus ad valorem.
And we're looking at fees, I believe, mainly here.
And it depends what you're going to spend it on, fees or ad valorem. It'd probably be better to do fees given the ad valorem homestead exemptions and everything else that's going on, so.
Can you give us an idea of how much money we might need to budget for next year if we want to try to have money the following year from a bond?
We'd have to go back and do that, but we could do stuff like that for you.
You can also benchmark from Pinellas County. They're just going through the SPAR GO bond on a very specific similar program. So
why don't we'll talk to our bond counsel, get an estimate, and then when we bring the budget, we'll highlight that and see if you want to add it.
So we can do that in the next workshop, or?
Cost of pursuit, not the dollar amount of the bond, but just.
Absolutely,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
Just to pay the experts to help us map out the plan and give us
Still worried
advice.
that we're a bit premature because we're not sure, but obviously the cost of pursuit will matter. That's
the cost and the timeline. I mean, we have our next elections in March, and I mean, we can also do a special election if we really feel that hard about it, or no.
They're very expensive.
10 grand. In the larger scheme of things.
Yeah, it might, I mean,
Yeah.
it just an
So we're
extra
saying
expense.
timeline-wise, that would be nice to have a rough estimate, because I don't think that we'll be able to turn this before the next regular election.
I don't think it happens in March, and we're getting the results of this stuff, and still trying to get our arms wrapped around it in March, and so.
So we're talking 2 years out, more than likely.
If it goes to
There are also
referendum, if
elections
it
in
doesn't go to
November.
referendum, then we don't need the 2 years, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but we don't know any of this until we know the amount, and we've got to figure out how we're going to approach it, and I think I'm personally saying I think we're premature to go too far down this path, other than gathering roughly what cost it would be, and can we earmark something to be able to do that if we choose to act quickly.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure we're going to want to prioritize this drainage projects for District 3. And no, we don't know exactly how much it's going to be or what it's going to be, but it's something that's been talked about for 80 years now. So I think people have had it, and they're ready to fix it. So I think it would be a good idea to plan on spending some money on this.
So I think, if I'm hearing City Manager, I think you can, next time we meet, when that is, you'll be able to tell us,
We'll bring you an
hey,
estimate.
all this is the
Yes.
stuff we just talked tonight is in, and now you'll tell us an estimate of an alternate adjustment for this bond discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Devin, what about the STR registration? Short-term rental?
Oh.
I talked to,
believe Ralph's
said that's doable.
team was going to review. You had a
We want to be careful that we don't lose our grandfathering of our zoning requirements for short-term rental. And I think what the idea was to have a registration where people would come in and register and have their homes on a registry and pay a fee for that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Can we charge any more? I mean, are there rules from the state about how much we can charge for that registration? Like, can we only charge the reasonable costs associated with administering it, or can we charge more than that just because we want to?
I'll bring that back to you. I think you can get some slight revenue from it.
Okay.
Even the cost of administration is something that we don't pay out of operational costs elsewhere.
Well, right, but we have no cost to operation
Right,
because we're not administering
We're not allowing
the
it. That was your
property, right?
comment last time. We're not allowing us, we're not administering it.
Right.
We can start with the special magistrate list of peoples.
Well, they definitely shouldn't be doing it anymore.
What about anything for Sunrunner assessment?
That wasn't anything that we had looked into, but we could add it to the list if the commission.
Mentioned it last time.
Oh,
Are you asking about assessing PSTA for having the Sunrunner in St. Pete Beach?
Anything, and I know they're not on our streets,
Yeah.
but if there's a way to work it so that they're any of the adjacent streets, any sort of usage for that. Just looking at stuff outside the box, if there's something.
I mean, we can certainly look into it. PSTA is looking at losing $22 million of their budget on loss of ad valorem taxes. I'm sure they would just quit putting the bus into St. Pete Beach before they'd pay us anything for it.
Everybody's looking for money.
Yeah.
And then about marketing and merchandising, St. Pete Beach, Sunset Capital of Florida.
So, yeah, there is where we would want to lobby the Tourist Development Council and visit St. Pete Clearwater, because that's all that TFT money goes is spent for tourism. And one of the things that I really wanted to do is get 3 times more events on their calendar that they publish, because we only had 2 St. Pete Beach events on their calendar for 2026. So in 2027, I would like to pursue ensuring that we get more things on that calendar. I'm not sure who the person is that would be doing that, but that I would like to look into that. And one other thing, as long as I'm talking, is relative to fees. I've heard some of our feedback from residents about the cabana and use and the BTRs and the permitting that we issue there. That could be, since that is a commercial activity on the beach, I'm wondering if the city should get more out of that, because it seems to cause a lot of issues having those boundary markers, the alcohol service, and what are we getting for it, $70 a year or something? What do you all think about that as a concept?
I think it's something worth checking into for sure. I mean, they're making money off of it. It's not like they're not. It's the resort tax fees, it's everything else, and we get nothing.
But the sandy beach could be something that we do get, so I'm interested in that.
Do we need to extend the meeting?
Are we almost done, or we? Yep.
I just have, I can make it through unless there's questions. Okay.
Choppy.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to share a little bit on these next slides about building our fiscal year 2027 budget. So I've said this, and we just really want for this to kind of hit home, but the budget is our plan. It's not a promise that's carved in stone. It reflects our best assumptions that we have today, and several of those assumptions are still moving as the conditions we change, we revisit, we reforecast, and we pivot. We've already talked a lot about property tax reform. We are tracking our current CIP and any inflation, whether that's fuel, cost of living assumptions. We are also, we don't have our property and casualty and our workers' comp renewals back yet, so we're tracking with those as well. And health insurance, we are in a group renewal, and those rates are still outstanding, so we're waiting to see. Since prior year claims drive those experiences, we're waiting on those figures too. So just wanted to let you know as we're building out our operating budget what we're tracking. So here's our current operating assumptions. So we're looking at,
Does the color coding mean anything, just while I'm glancing at it? Does it mean anything, color coding?
no, it doesn't. So what we're looking at here is just tracking at whether it's fuel, energy, diesel, any of our construction escalations or our tariff premiums, our local CPI in the area, and then some of those insurance categories that I already spoke about. This is where we're currently looking at for some of those percentages increases, or in one case a decrease. So those are areas as we're building out our budget that we're tracking pretty closely with. Looking at some of our operating budget builds and some of those best practices, you'll see on number 1, we have our FTEs for fiscal year 2027. You can see here that our city manager direction has been to hold the FTE count flat, so no increases in service delivery. When we're looking at building out our operating budget, we are looking at modest CPI growth. And then potentially looking at sort of a 2 scenarios, either base or reduced, just based on what's tracking with that legislative risk. So where do we need to cut to make up any of those gaps? And then we're always tracking with the government finance officer's best practices as we're building out any of our documents. And so you'll see here talking about looking at some of formal fund balance policies, since we don't have those for all of our funds. Obviously, we'll be bringing forward a structurally balanced budget. We'll be looking to continue on those long-term financial forecasts. And then with our fees and charges and those policies with some of those cost recovery targets. So with those, we're going to be doing, as our city manager mentioned, we have quite a bit going on, so we'll look to phase and prioritize those as we're building out our operating budget.
Debbie, can you pause for just 1 second? Mr. Mayor, I do think we need to extend.
Is the clock wrong up there? I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't
we're
realize
at
the clock was wrong up
9:56. So.
It's the last slide. I think she's literally on the last slide.
That's
Aren't you?
We've got some wrap-ups to do.
That's the last one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so just as our next step, you can see that we've got direction here from you tonight, so we'll be building that into your preliminary budget. The rate studies, as the city manager mentioned, will be coming forward. We're going to continue looking at some of those summer grant applications. We're going to continue to track that property tax legislation and what they're modeling. We'll model out any of the revenue or continue to work on those areas that you had selected. And then for workshop number 3, we'll take a really deep dive into our ad valorem, our property tax analysis, and we'll have a preliminary budget book for you.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. All right. I realize we got some more things to handle, so do we want to entertain an extension?
I make a motion to extend till 10:10.
Thank you. I love it.
I second.
Commissioner Clausy?
Yes.
Commissioner Maldonado?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
No.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Tate?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Other questions? I feel like we've been peppering you with questions all day long, so I'm good personally, unless there's others. All right. Reports, please. City Clerk, any reports, please?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
Nothing to report.
City Attorney.
Nothing this evening.
District 4, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Vina Del Mar Island Association, the outgoing board, and welcome and congratulate the new board for the recent appointments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing to add?
Commissioner Robinson.
Oh, I wanted to thank Kristen Coman and Brandon Berry and Laura Canary for putting together a workshop for historic designation. It was very informative, and I look to have some more information out this week via Nextdoor. And hopefully we'll get a lot of people applying.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Nothing to report?
Okay, I'll wrap up real quick and just say thank you to the staff. I know this is a lot of work that you put into it, and we appreciate it. Been a long day. There'll be more long days, but we appreciate you sincerely. Thank you. To the city residents, I think At least I'm at least already on board to be in the dunk tank. I don't know if that's going to happen with everybody on July 4th, but it's your opportunity to say how much you like our decisions or not. On July 4th, we'll all be in a dunk tank, I think. At least I've committed myself to be.
I'll be there.
All right. I think that's a wrap. With that, we will adjourn. Thank you.
10 o'clock exactly.
We need to-